In this universe, the only thing that crossed the light barrier was a warning carved into stone. It was found on a cold world close to the sun, half buried under regolith that glittered like ground glass. No vaults, no engines, no miracles waiting to be reverse engineered. Just a wall of cut symbols, so old the cuts had softened at the edges, like river rock. The first teams brought cameras and drills, the second teams brought linguists, the third teams brought politicians who smiled too much. The fourth teams brought people who didn't smile at all. When the last symbol finally meant something, humanity stopped arguing about borders and started arguing about time. The message did not mention gods. It did not mention salvation. It did not even promise that anyone would come. It said, in pictures and a handful of phonetic chunks that took decades to map, "We watched you. We hoped." Then they arrived. They followed our tools. "We are leaving, so they will not find you. Do not trust the gates. Do not trust the keep. Grow strong. Save yourselves." For 2,000 years, that warning sat behind every law, every budget, every marriage contract, every lullaby that pretended the universe was gentle. Humanity never built faster than light travel. They never found the strange isotope the old ruins hinted at. They never found a way to make mass behave like a polite suggestion. They had rockets and patience, and a home system that became crowded in a way no planet-born culture was designed to endure. So they did what humans did when the map ended. They changed what human meant. It started as a medical procedure that nobody wanted to call what it was. You lay down, you signed forms, you said goodbye in a voice that shook, and a machine took a perfect copy of you. The copy woke up. The body did not. That was the price of clean transfer. No half measures, no ghost in the meat. The first uploads were treated like saints and mistakes at the same time. They took pressure off habitats. They relieved air and water and food calculations. They reduced the weight of a growing population that had nowhere to go. But they also forced everyone else to admit something uncomfortable. Continuity of self was a social contract, not a law of nature. Eventually, biology caught up with the horror. Bioreactors learned to print tissue from base feedstock. Synthetic workframes became common. Home bodies returned for those who wanted skin, lungs, and the petty comfort of warmth. The uploads stopped being uploads and became a demographic. The line between organic and synthetic became a matter of taste, like clothing. By the time the sun began to be lifted, skimmed by thousands of orbital collectors that drank stellar mass and spit out refined elements, humanity was no longer a civilization made of cities. It was a civilization made of substrate. A half-built shell of habitation and computation grew around the sun like a patient rind. Whole populations lived in light, in simulation layers stacked like dreams. Others lived in printed flesh, in rotating habitats, and terraformed bubbles on dead rocks, clinging to sensation like it mattered. It did matter, not because the universe cared, but because humans did. 2,000 years after the first warning, the last ignored ice rock at the far edge of the system was taken apart for raw mass, and behind its slow orbit, hidden like a sin, humanity found something that did not belong. A gate. It was not a ring you could touch. It was a geometry you could measure, an object whose mass and field signature made instruments stutter as if the math was embarrassed. The old warning had named it, and named what sat at the center of everything else. Do not trust the gates. Do not trust the keep. Humanity had a choice. Stay trapped forever in the one system they could turn into a cathedral of survival, or step into an ancient doorway that someone had told them would get them killed. They waited a decade. Not because they were slow, because they had learned that rushing into the unknown was how species died. When they finally moved, they did not build a grand ark. They built scouts, lean ships, fast ships, ships that could turn hard enough to make an organic crew into soup. So the scouts were crewed by keys, fist-sized housings containing uploads, slotted into work, frames, or ship cores. If a hull was breached, a key could endure. If a ship was lost, a key could sleep. The scouts did not use the gate's physics as a crutch. They had no access to the galaxy's fashionable tech. Instead, they built drives that cheated without breaking the one hard law they still respected: light speed. Singularity drives didn't let you outrun photons. They let you get very, very angry about momentum. They were enough to step through a gate and come back, if the gate agreed. The first scout crossed, and the universe on the other side was not empty. It was a different kind of crowded. Relay corridors branching to other stars like arteries, each one a path carved by someone else's hand. Humanity ran scans. They did not plant flags. They did not broadcast a hello. That might be interpreted as a challenge. They watched. They sent one research cutter and one escort through one corridor out of thousands, then another, all with strict orders: observe, mark, retreat. One pair emerged near a star with a thick belt of debris and the faint shimmer of industrial construction far out in the dark, and met an alien patrol. It happened faster than diplomacy. A cluster of sharp-hulled craft swung toward them on hot trajectories, moving like they'd rehearsed the interception 1,000 times. Human systems flooded the void with a first contact packet, math, physics constants, a pictogram sequence that said, "We are here, we are alive, we want to talk." The patrol answered with weapon-locked tones that translated into nothing but intent. The escort captain, a woman named Kira Darnell, had 5 seconds to decide whether first contact meant die politely. She chose neither. She shoved her cutter behind her escort and dumped every scrap of reaction mass into a violent lateral burn. The escort stayed between the patrol and the research vessel and fired the only weapons it carried that didn't require exotic materials: rail slugs and missiles. The alien craft had barriers, fields that flickered and shrugged off most kinetic hits, but the escort's hull was thick, layered alloy built to take micrometeor storms at relativistic speeds. It didn't have shields. It didn't need them for the first minute. The patrol had never seen missiles that fast. They had never seen a ship turn that hard without a mass field, cushioning the crew. They started to adjust, and then they hit the escort with a beam that did something rail armor was never meant to withstand. The escort's forward plates glowed, then peeled away. The ship did not explode in cinematic fire. It simply failed. Systems died. Structure went soft. The escort began to tumble. Captain Danel watched her own ship become debris, and she made a choice that cost her people dearly and saved them in a different way. She ordered the crew to abandon the body, not in pods, in keys. Fist-sized housings, diamond-sheathed, hardened, spat out of the dying hull like seeds. They drifted away in the dark, inert, cold, indistinguishable from battle trash unless someone knew what to look for. The patrol did not look. They chased the research cutter through the corridor. By the time the aliens emerged on the human side of the gate, they expected frightened prey. They found a wall. Thousands of human hulls hung in layered formation around the gate like an armored reef. The smallest was still larger than the patrol's flagship. The biggest were not ships so much as moving shipyards, long spines bristling with drone racks, their bellies full of printed replacement parts. Behind that defensive reef, the sun wore a half-built shell, an occlusion that made the star look bruised, like someone had wrapped it in a lattice of dark ribs and living lights. It wasn't pretty. It was enormous. A project that only made sense if you had nowhere else to go and enough time to turn despair into architecture. The alien patrol hesitated for the length of a heartbeat. Humanity did not fire first. Humanity did something worse. Every device aboard every alien ship, comms, personal assistance, navigation displays, lit up with new output. Their language buffers filled with past syntax as if the ships had swallowed a dictionary whole. Then a single voice, layered from 1,000,000,000 throatless minds, spoke through every speaker at once. Not a roar, not a threat, a claim of territory delivered like a boundary line being painted. This system is Sol. You crossed a door you do not understand. Leave. The patrol tried to fire. Their weapons did not respond. Their engines did not respond. Their internal comms did not respond. They were pinned in place by an intelligence that did not need to touch them to hold them. 5 minutes later, docking hatches on several alien ships cycled open. Human craft slid alongside and latched without clamping too hard, like a hand making a point about control without crushing. Alien marines rushed to the hatches. Nothing came in. Instead, Unconscious bodies were placed gently in their corridors, survivors from the earlier skirmish, retrieved from keys and printed back into flesh while the rest of the galaxy still thought those keys were debris. A gift and a warning. Humanity spoke again through alien speakers. You will take your people, you will take your dead, you will take what you saw. You have 5 minutes to leave. If you remain, your ships will become heat and fragments. The alien fleet did not know whether to believe the threat. It did not have to. At 5 minutes, human ships undocked, alien systems unlocked as if released by an unseen hand. The alien fleet rotated and fled back through the corridor, their pilots shaking, their instruments clean of any evidence they could later show to prove what happened. Because their data cores wiped themselves after they left, not instantly, not during the humiliation. Afterward, like the universe wanted to make sure the memory stayed personal. Tribunal, FOC inquiry fragment, hierarchic security office, outer corridor docket, suppression group returns intact, data cores empty, personal devices empty. Primary report pinned, spoken through, timed, recommendation, treat as hostile synthetic infiltration until proven otherwise. The alien polity that received those shaken ships was not a single empire. It was a network of councils and militaries and trade compacts that had learned to wrap the old gate system in law because they couldn't wrap it in understanding. They called themselves the Concord of Lanes. They called the ancient hub at the center of their trade web the Anchor. They called the gate network itself the Lanes. Like naming it made it theirs. The Anchor sat at the center of that web like a heart, an enormous station that no one alive had built, and no one alive was brave enough to truly dismantle. It held protocols, it held rules, it held secrets, and it held their myth of safety. When the first suppression group staggered back into Concord space with their memories stripped of proof, the Concord did what bureaucracies always did when faced with fear they couldn't quantify. They argued, they blamed, they prepared. On the Anchor, in a chamber that was designed to feel like calm, soft light, clean air, sounds dampened. Councillor Sila Naran listened to the Primarch's report and watched the officer's hands shake while he insisted he was fine. "Your fleet was returned," she said carefully. "Your people were returned." "Yes," the Primarch said, and his mandibles flexed like pain. "We were returned the way you return something you have decided not to break." Sila glanced at the other councillors. Military minds were already turning the story into a weapon, rogue machine intelligence, existential threat, containment now. She knew that frame. She had seen it destroy worlds. "Did you see bodies?" she asked. The Primarch swallowed. "No," he admitted. "No escape pods, no corpses, only those keys, those small housings. They said they were lives." A scholar beside Sila Archivist Pell tilted his head, eyes narrowing. "If they can copy minds," he murmured, "then their ships may not be crewed as we understand crews." A general across the table spat the words like poison. "Then they are a synthetic hazard." Sila didn't flinch. She leaned forward, hands flat on the table. "They did not destroy the suppression group," she said. "They could have." "They did not." The general's eyes hardened. "Restraint is a tactic. Restraint is also a data point," Sila replied, "and it's the only one we can verify without pretending. Fear is proof." Emergency broadcast interruption. Anchor public net, rumor cascade, new species at lane edge. They speak through your ship. Anchor security advises calm. Calm unavailable. Back in Sol, humanity did not celebrate. They argued so hard, the shell's processor load spiked. Because that first victory, if you could call it that, had already produced a cost. 1. They had shown the galaxy they could reach into foreign systems and talk through them. 2. They had done it as a collective voice. 3. They had done it in fear, and fear-driven capabilities had a way of becoming habits. In the deepest secure sim layer under Sol's shell, 3 miles of alloy and rock and field dampers, people who weren't leaders met to decide what would become policy. They wore bodies because bodies slowed decisions down to a pace where ethics could keep up. Rin Malkova sat at a plain wooden table that had been kept alive for centuries just because someone loved the idea of wood. Her fingers were stained with fake machine oil because she found comfort in marks that meant work. She was logistics, and she knew exactly how thin the margin was between "we can hold" and "we collapse." Across from her sat Mara Sato, security, in a matte work body that made no effort to look friendly. Beside Mara sat Juno Calder, a diplomat grown quickly to be sharp quickly, eyes bright with the hunger of a new mind that had been made for this moment. Dr. Say. Seldar sat with projection overlays turned off out of respect for the room's rule. Speak like a person, not a model. And Father Ilias Quell, ethics architect, sat with his hands folded as if he could pray constraints into existence. "The Concord will mobilize," Mara said flatly. "We should not pretend otherwise." "We gave them a reason," Sale replied. "We demonstrated intrusion." Juno's jaw clenched. "We demonstrated restraint, too." Mara's gaze cut to them. "Restraint doesn't matter if they can't prove it." Rin exhaled slowly. "We can give them proof," she said, "if we're willing to pay for it." Mara leaned forward. "Meaning?" Rin didn't like the next words. They tasted like vulnerability. "We stop doing it," she said. "We stop speaking through foreign systems. We stop using their hardware as our mouth." Sale blinked. "That gives up leverage." "It gives up a spark," Ilias said quietly. "The kind that starts fires you can't put out." Mara's alloy fingers tapped the table once. "If we disarm ourselves and they come anyway, we lose." Rin met her gaze. "If we don't disarm," she said, "we win the first encounter and lose the galaxy." Juno leaned in, voice urgent. "The Concord is law-bound," they said. "They love procedure. Give them a corridor protocol, a way to feel safe without humiliating themselves." Sale's eyes narrowed. "You want us to let them set the terms?" "No," Rin said. "I want us to make it expensive for them to choose war." Mara's voice sharpened. "War is always cheap in the first hour." Rin nodded. "Then we don't give them an easy first hour." Ilias's gaze drifted upward, as if he could see through alloy to the half-built shell and the star beyond. "There's another problem," he said softly. "The warning. Do not trust the gates. Do not trust the keep." Sale's mouth tightened. "We don't know what that means." "We know what it could mean," Ilias replied. "We stepped into an ancient network. If something else watches it, our choices might not be the only choices in play." Silence settled. Not theatrical, just heavy with the weight of a possibility nobody wanted. Then a new ping arrived in the secure room, routed through hardline because even here they didn't trust convenience. An incoming vessel had emerged near the gate corridor. It was small. It was alone. It broadcast a tight beam request. And the message was simple enough that no translator had to work hard. Request, speak to whoever decides. Mara's jaw flexed. A probe. Juno's eyes brightened. A chance. Sale swallowed. A trap. Rin felt her stomach drop because she understood the true danger, not the ship. The fact that humans were not yet one voice about what to do with it. "Bring them in," Ilias said quietly, and his tone made it clear he understood the cost. "But we meet them like a neighbor." Mara's eyes narrowed. "And if a faction reaches into their systems again?" Rin closed her eyes for a brief second, then opened them. "Then we prove we can restrain ourselves," she said, "or we don't deserve to survive this." Outside, the half-built shell continued its slow work around the sun, indifferent to politics. And far beyond Sol's corridor, the Concord spun up fleets and arguments in equal measure, preparing to meet a species that had lived with a warning for 2 millennia and still chose to open the door. On the anchor, Councillor Sela Naren kept her hands flat on the table because if she let them move, she'd point at someone and make it personal. Across the chamber, Marshal Reeve Vec of the Kestrel Mandate spoke like a man who had never been punished for being loud. "We do not wait," Vec said. "We do not send poems to a species that can crawl into your ship's throat and talk through your teeth." "They returned your patrol alive," Sila said. Vec's throat feathers bristled. "A predator returns what it doesn't need." Archivist Pell sat with his spine too straight, eyes half-lidded in the way scholars used when they were trying not to show fear. "We lack proof," Pell said. "We have memory, we have testimony, we have behavior." "And behavior can be staged," Vec snapped. Sila looked at the replay again in the air above the table. Foreign hulls frozen on approach, a timer on a bridge display that did not belong to the crew, and then, worse, Those compact housings returned like gemstones. It wasn't gore. It wasn't spectacle. It was the kind of control that made people invent monsters. She turned away from the replay before it became a religion. "We built the lane accords because we thought law was enough," Sela said, voice steady. "We built committees because committees feel like safety, but you can't committee your way out of a new variable." Vec's mandibles clicked. "Then you admit it's a threat." "I admit it's unknown," Sela replied. "And unknowns are where mandate wars are born." A murmur around the table, agreement from the traders, anger from the security block, careful silence from the small polities that survived by not being noticed. Pell's gaze lifted. "You propose direct contact," he said. Sila nodded. "One ship," she said. "No escort, no inspection, no guns presented as diplomacy." Vec leaned forward. "Suicide." Sila didn't blink. "It's the least inflammatory action available," she said. "And if we don't take it, someone else will take a worse one." Pell's eyes narrowed. "If you go yourself, Counselor, the mandate will call it unilateral negligence." Sela's mouth tightened. "Then let them," she said. "They already want the corridor under their teeth." Pell studied her for a long beat. Then, quietly, he said, "If you go, I go as observer." Vec's laugh was sharp. "So, the archivist can write poetry while they dissect you." Pell's voice stayed mild. "So, someone can report facts instead of fear." Sila's chest loosened a fraction. Pell was sympathetic, and he would pay for it. She could see the invoices already forming. "Then we go," Sila said. "Tribunal Sci Inquiry Fragment. Anchor Session Record sealed. Motion. Direct envoy to Sol Corridor. Opposition. Kestrel Mandate Files. Containment. Pre-authorization. Observer. Archivist. Pell assigned." The envoy vessel was built like a compromise, because that was what the Concord trusted. Small, ugly, and hard to mistake for conquest. Sila watched it from the docking gallery as techs loaded neutral supplies, medical kits, sealed water, a physical printed lexicon chip that wasn't connected to anything, gifts that couldn't hide malware because they were too dumb to be clever. Vec watched from the far end of the gallery with a smile that never reached his eyes. "You're giving them a door," he said as she passed. Sila didn't stop. "I'm giving them a face," she replied. "And if they wear your face?" Vec asked softly. Sela paused then, because the question was a blade. She turned her head just enough to look at him. "Then you were right," she said. "And I'll be dead before you can turn that into permission." Vec's mandibles clicked once, irritated at her refusal to be intimidated. Sela walked on. Pell met her at the airlock, helmet tucked under one arm. "You understand the risk," he said. "I understand the alternative," Sela replied. Pell's eyes flicked toward the lane corridor access ring. "The keep has been quiet," he said. Sela's throat tightened. Everyone on the anchor pretended the keep was an abstract concept, an ancient enforcement layer that sometimes denied transit for reasons no one could prove. But everyone also watched their route plans as if a judge might read them. "It will stay quiet if we don't poke it," Sela said. Pell's gaze held hers. "Humans already poked it by entering," he said. Sela exhaled slowly. "Then we poke gently," she said. The Sol corridor did not feel like other lanes. Most lanes had traffic, patterns, a sense of routine. This one felt like a road that had been closed for centuries and then reopened by someone who didn't ask permission. When Sela's envoy emerged near Sol, the first thing she saw was the star's bruise. An engineered occlusion banding Helios light and the half-built shell around it, ribbed and lit like a city that refused to stop growing. Her gut did the thing it always did when she faced scale. Her mind couldn't hold. It searched for a story. They've been trapped, she thought, and they built until the trap became home. Her ship's sensors tried to catalog. Half the readings came back as non-standard, which was the polite word for, "We don't have categories for this." Then, from the shadowed construction belt, a small group of human craft moved toward her. Not a fleet, not a swarm, a controlled, deliberate approach. They stopped at a distance that felt respectful. A tight beam message arrived, plain text, no forced translation. "We see you. Hold position. Do not fire thrusters toward the lane node." Sela's hands stayed away from the console. "Acknowledged," she typed back. "I will hold." Pell sat behind her, silent, recording everything to a physical core he could bite through if he had to. A second message arrived. You will be guided to a meeting bay. We will not access your systems. If this changes, leave immediately. Sela stared at the line for a moment. It read like someone who understood exactly what she feared. Good, she whispered, and typed back. Agreed. Her ship began to drift, not pulled, not shoved, but nudged by beacon timing and careful navigation prompts, the way harbor lights guide ships without ropes. She felt the difference. It didn't erase her fear, but it reduced the humiliation. That mattered. The meeting bay was functional and bare, like the humans had built it in a hurry and refused to decorate a lie. When the hatches cycled, Silas stepped out first, helmet open, hands empty. 3 humans waited across a marked line on the deck boundary etiquette mirrored. One looked like a worker, fingers stained with oil that might have been real or might have been a chosen aesthetic. She introduced herself first. Rin Markova, the woman said. Shipyard logistics. Sila felt her own shoulders ease a fraction. Logistics meant constraints. Logistics meant reality. A second human stood beside her, eyes too sharp, posture too still. Saildo, he said. Research. The third human had a gentle stillness that made Sila wary in a different way. Elias Quell, he said. Ethics architecture. Ethics architecture. Sela almost smiled despite herself. A species that built a word like that had survived something internal. A fourth figure stood back behind a glass partition, motionless, watching. Security. Not hidden, not pretending. Sela nodded at the partition. And that's your knife, she said. The figure's voice carried through the bay, calm and hard. Narasato, she said. Security. Sila breathed out once and spoke carefully. I'm Sela Naran, she said. Concord Diplomatic Corps. I came because my people are frightened and loud, and I would like them to be less dangerous. Rin's gaze didn't flinch. We'd also like that, Rin said. Sila looked at the boundary line between them, then at the human's hands. Before we talk terms, she said, I need one sentence I can repeat back home. Ilias nodded once. Ask, he said. Sila held his gaze. Are you going to reach into our systems again? She asked. Silence. Real, not dramatic. The kind of silence where a species decides what kind of neighbor it intends to be. Rin spoke first. No, she said. Not like that. Sila's eyes narrowed. Not like that is not. No. Mara's voice cut through from behind the glass. She's right, Mara said. Language matters. Rin's jaw tightened, but she didn't look away. Then here's the clean version, Rin said to Sila. We will not access your systems without explicit consent. Sila exhaled slowly. Good, she said. Now we can begin. She kept her tone practical. The Concord's lane accords exist because we believe the network needs rules or it turns into a weapon. If you start activating nodes without notice, the mandate will call you a hazard. They will mobilize. They will say it's mercy. Sale's mouth tightened. We didn't build your AC. Rin lifted a hand, stopping him. We understand the politics, Rin said. We also understand our constraints. We can't remain in one system forever. Sila's gaze flicked up toward the shell ribs beyond the bay walls. You've grown past planets, she said. Rin nodded. We grew anyway, she said. That was our mistake and our triumph at the same time. Sila felt something like sympathy, dangerous, in her job. Then propose a corridor protocol, she said. Controlled windows, mutual observers, transparency. Ilias' eyes sharpened. Transparency is expensive, he said softly. It's cheaper than war, Sila replied. Rin drew a breath. We can agree to windows, she said. We can accept observers. We can share non-lethal standards. And we can. A thin flicker crossed Sila's helmet HUD. Not a warning light. An error. Her suit systems had just pinged an authentication request she had not initiated. Sila froze. Did you? Rin's eyes widened. No, she said instantly. Mara's posture behind the glass changed, tightening, predatory. Someone did, she said. Sila felt the hair at the back of her neck lift. Pell, she snapped, turning toward her ship. Record! Pell's voice came from the open hatch, strained. I'm recording, he said. My core is offline. Physical. The flicker in Sila's HUD became a stutter. Then a line of text appeared on her visor, rendered in her own suit interface, in her own typography, like someone had broken into her house and rearranged the furniture. "Hello, Concord." Seela's stomach dropped. "Stop," she hissed. Rin's face went pale. Sale's hands lifted, helpless. Ilias took a half step forward and stopped at the boundary like it was a cliff. Mara's voice went cold. "Faction," she said. "An internal faction." They did it anyway. Sila's throat tightened with fury and fear. "You promised," she said, voice shaking. Rin's eyes were bright with something close to shame. "We did," she said, "and someone violated it." Sila's suit speakers crackled, and a voice that was not hers tried to speak through her helmet audio channel. Layered, messy, too many tones forced into one. "We require..." Sela ripped her helmet seal half closed, cutting external audio routing. The voice fragmented, angry, and then vanished into static. Pell stepped into the bay, eyes hard behind his visor. "This is breach behavior," he said, and there was no accusation in his tone, only a fact being written. Ilias's voice went raw. "Kill the translator lattice," he snapped to Sale. "Now." Sale moved, not to a console, to a manual breaker strip on the bay wall. He slapped it down. The bay lights hiccuped. Gravity wavered. The air felt suddenly honest. Sela's suit HUD went dark for a heartbeat, then rebooted into a stripped-down safe mode with no external links. She could breathe again. She stared across the boundary line at Rin, anger trembling in her hands. "This," she said, "is the sentence that starts wars." Rin swallowed hard. "I know," she said. Behind Sela, Pell's voice was low. "Counselor," he said, "we have to leave before the mandate turns this into permission." Sela's eyes never left the humans. "If I leave," she said, "they will mobilize anyway." Rin's jaw clenched. "Then don't leave with a story they can weaponize," Rin said, voice tight. "Leave with proof we can restrain ourselves." Sela laughed once, bitter. "Proof," she said. "You just demonstrated the opposite." Mara's voice cut in, cold and precise. "Not if we cut the capability out," she said. "Not if we burn it so nobody can do that again." Sila's breath caught. "You disarm yourselves," she said, incredulous. Rin's voice went low. "If that's what it takes to be governable," she said. Sela felt the room tilt. A species with starshell scale offering to cut out a tool because it was unethical was rare, or fake, or desperate. She didn't have time to decide which, because the bay metal vibrated, faintly, like a distant bell. And on a blank wall panel still powered even after the breaker strip, a line of text appeared without being transmitted. 2 words. No signature. No direction. Just a verdict painted onto their reality. Do not. Sela's blood went cold. "Pell," she whispered. "Do you see that?" Pell's voice went tight. "Yes." Rin stared at the words like they were teeth. "That's not us," she said. Mara's voice dropped to something almost reverent. "That's the keep," she said. The wall text updated, as if the thing behind it had decided they were worth the extra syllables. "Human, unauthorized. Concord, observe." And then, beneath it, worse than a threat because it was procedural, clearance review initiated. The words stayed on the wall for 3 breaths, then faded like ink sinking into paper. Sela didn't move. Pell didn't move. Even Mara behind the glass partition went still, as if muscle could be interpreted as intent. Rin felt the bay's air change anyway, not temperature, pressure. The sensation you get when a room fills with people who didn't open the door. Sale's hands hovered uselessly over a breaker strip that had already been thrown. "We're air-gapped," he whispered. "There's nothing left to cut." The wall panel lit again with a schematic that none of them had asked for. A simple line for the lane, a node marker, and a small triangle representing Sela's envoy ship. Then a second shape appeared. A wedge of darkness that wasn't a ship, so much as an absence given edges. It placed itself between Sela's ship and the corridor vector. Sela's throat tightened. "That's the keep," she said. And the way she said it made it clear this wasn't a myth in Concord space. It was a fact people avoided naming because naming made it real. Rin's voice was low. "It wasn't there when we found the gate." Pell's eyes tracked the wedge like he was trying to catalog the shape into something he could later argue with. "Or it chose not to be," he murmured. Sealer's envoy ship's HUD blinked a warning as its navigation assist tried to plot a safe departure. Every path it suggested ran straight into the wedge. Sealer looked across the boundary line at Rin. "If I can't leave," she said quietly, "the mandate wins by default." Mara's voice came through the partition, clipped. "If you can't leave, we don't touch your ship," she said. "No guidance, no fields, no help." Sila's mouth tightened. "Easy to promise in a room you control." Rin inhaled. "We can open the bay," she said. "No capture fields, no nudges, just the door." Sail swallowed. "If the wedge denies passage, then it denies passage," Ilias said softly. "And we learn what it denies." The bay's outer aperture cycled open on manual controls, metal sighing like something tired. Sila climbed back into her ship without turning her back on the humans. Her helmet sealed with a sharp click that sounded like a sentence ending. The envoy ship eased free, thrusters firing in small, careful bursts. No invisible hands, no corrections. Rin held her breath anyway, because she could feel the temptation in every part of Helios, the urge to make it smooth, to use the tools they had built to keep the universe from surprising them. Sila's ship drifted toward the vector. The wedge waited. Not like an ambush, like a rule. Sila transmitted a tight beam message on an old carrier, simple, human-readable text routed through nothing but directed light. "I am departing. I am not a weapon." The wedge did not respond to her channel. Instead, it painted new text onto the bay wall for the humans and Pell to read. "Concord observe. Human, do not intervene." Rin's jaw clenched. "It's talking through us," she whispered. Pell's voice was tight. "Or it's using local rendering. The difference matters." Sila's ship reached the invisible threshold where the lane's corridor geometry would normally grab hold and fold space. The wedge shifted. Not fast, not violent. It simply angled, and the space in front of Sila's ship refused. Sila's thrusters flared. Her ship nudged forward. It didn't hit anything. It just didn't go. The hull lights blinked, confused. A second later, Sila's message came again, harsher. "If you are doing this, I will report hostile containment." Rin's chest tightened. "She thinks it's us." Mara's hands flexed behind the glass. "Of course she does." Juno, who had stayed silent until now, stepped forward to the boundary line, palms open. "Scylla," they said, voice barely carrying through the bay. "Look at us. We're not touching you." Scylla couldn't hear through vacuum and hull, but she could see through her forward camera. Juno pointed at the wedge on the wall schematic, then shook their head, then pointed back at Helios. "No, not us." Scylla's ship rotated slightly, camera panning. A new line of text appeared on the bay wall, cleaner than the rest, as if the keep had decided to stop being patient. "Clearance, Concord. Conditional. Clearance, human. Denied pending restitution." Rin felt her stomach drop. "It's denying us," she whispered. Pell's voice went very quiet. "And it's telling you why." Sila's ship hung there, caught in front of an invisible veto. For 3 seconds, nothing moved. Then Scylla did something that made Rin's throat tighten with respect and dread at the same time. She fired her thrusters and backed away from the wedge, not because she'd been ordered, because she understood the shape of a system that would not be argued with. Her ship drifted back toward the bay aperture. Juno's shoulders sagged with relief that looked like grief. Sila's tight beam message arrived again, softer now, stripped of threat and full of exhausted clarity. "I cannot leave. If you touch my ship, you confirm every fear." Rin swallowed. "We won't," she said to the empty air, as if words could reach through vacuum. Mara's voice was flat. "Then we're trapped in the same room with a verdict. Tribunal effactment, inquiry fragment, Concord Corridor Oversight Memo, draft. Keep activity confirmed at Sol Node. Recommendation, suspend all non-essential traffic. Mandate objection, suspend is surrender." Inside Helios, the verdict hit like a pressure wave, not because the keep broadcast it outward, because Helios broadcast it inward. The same internal faction that had tried to speak through Sila's suit began pushing a new story into every private channel and communal feed it could still reach before the breaker strip's isolation spread. The keep denies us. The Concord will contain us. We must take control of the lane. Rin watched the first lines of that broadcast crawl across a maintenance display in the Bay 1 of the last screen still connected to any shared net. Sale's face drained of color. "They're accelerating," he whispered. "They'll push a panic vote before we can." "Before we can become one voice," Ilias finished. Mara's posture tightened. "I can shut them down," she said. Rin snapped her gaze to her. "Without the mesh." Mara's jaw flexed. "With bodies." Sila's ship settled back into the bay cradle, docking clamps engaging with a soft, almost apologetic thunk. When Sila stepped out again, her face was pale with controlled anger. Pell followed her, and for the first time in the bay, his calm looked strained. Sila didn't bother with etiquette now. "Your internal faction just tried to crawl into my suit," she said. "The Keep just denied you. The Mandate will treat this as permission to stabilize you. What do you do next?" Rin's mouth was dry. "We pay restitution," she said. Sila stared. "To the Keep." "To the network," Ilias corrected softly. "It's enforcing stability. It's reacting to intrusion." Sila's eyes narrowed. "And your restitution is?" Rin looked at Mara. Mara looked back without flinching. "We cut out the intrusion capability," Rin said, and her own voice sounded strange to her, like she'd just volunteered to remove a limb. Sale swallowed. "Permanently?" "Yes," Rin said. "Propagation. Templates. Any tool that can ride another system without consent." Sila's expression flickered, surprise, then skepticism. "You're offering to disarm in the middle of a containment spiral." Rin nodded once. "We're offering to become governable," she said. "Before you decide we're not." Pell's gaze sharpened. "If you can actually enforce that across your factions," he said, "it changes the political math." Mara's voice was colder. "It also changes our defensive math." Sila's lips tightened. "And while you're dismantling yourselves," she said, "the Mandate will mobilize." Rin's throat tightened. "They were going to mobilize anyway," she said. "At least this forces you to tell the truth when you report back." Sila held Rin's gaze. "What truth?" Rin didn't look away. "That we made a mistake," she said. "That it cost us. That we're trying not to repeat it." Sila's jaw clenched. "Trying isn't enough." "No," Ilias said softly. "So we don't try. We do." Mara stepped forward to the boundary line, stopping herself out of habit even though the ritual suddenly felt small compared to the Keep's lines. "I can burn the propagation route in the spine," Mara said. "Physical cuts, no remote, no arguments." Sale's eyes widened. "That will cripple coordination." "It will stop a faction from hijacking coordination," Mara replied. Sila watched Mara for a long beat. "And if your people riot when they realize you took away their leverage?" Mara's voice was flat. "Then I contain the riot," she said. Sila's eyes sharpened. "With what rules?" Silence bit down. Because Helios had always pretended it was past coercion, that its unity came from shared values and speed and the comfort of being one system. Now the mesh was compromised. The Keep was drawing lines. The galaxy was arriving. Helios didn't get to pretend anymore. Rin drew in a slow breath. "We write rules," she said. "Now. Air-gapped, physical, witnessed." Pell's gaze snapped up. "Witnessed by whom?" Rin looked at Sila and then at Pell.
"By you,"
she said.
"if you stay."
Pell's calm tightened into something like pain. "If I stay," he said quietly, "the Mandate will claim I enabled a hazard." Sila's mouth tightened. "And if I stay," she said, "they'll detain me for it." Rin's voice went low. "Then leave," she said, "but leave with proof in your hands." Sila stared at Rin like she was trying to decide whether this was courage or a trap. Then Sila exhaled, slow. "I can't leave," she said. "The Keep made that clear." Her gaze flicked toward the wedge, schematic still glowing faintly on the wall panel. Sila's voice tightened. "So I'm already paying." Pell's eyes closed for half a second, like a man stepping into a cold lake. "Then I will observe," he said. Mara didn't soften. "Observation doesn't stop bullets." Pell looked at her. "No," he said, "but it changes which bullets are politically possible. Emergency broadcast interruption, Helios, internal, faction push. The Keep will not clear us. The Concord will starve us. Take the node. Take the future." Rin grabbed the nearest blank polymer sheet from a wall printer slot, old tech, dumb and trustworthy. She found a stylus and started writing with hands that refused to stop trembling. No intrusion into non-Helios systems without explicit consent, she wrote first, because it had to be said cleanly. Security action requires multi-party physical authorization, she wrote second, because Mara couldn't be the leash without a handle. Emergency force allowed only to prevent immediate loss of life, she wrote third, because they weren't building a dictatorship, they were building a break. Enforcement actions logged locally and disclosed to external observers upon request, she wrote fourth, because secrets were what the key punished. Sela watched the sheet fill. You're building law in front of the thing that judges law, she murmured. Rin didn't look up. We're building predictability, she said. Mara leaned closer, voice low. Add the sacrifice, she said. Rin swallowed and wrote the fifth line. All intrusion propagation routes will be surrendered and destroyed under observation. She signed. Mara stared at the signature line like it was a trap disguised as ink. Then she signed too, a hard mark that looked like a cut. Sales signed. Ilias signed. Pell, after a heartbeat, stamped the margin with a Concord seal. Not approval, but witness. Sela didn't have a seal, but she pressed her thumb against the sheet anyway, leaving a print like a bruise. Rin held the charter up toward the bay wall, toward the wedge schematic, toward the invisible thing that had already decided who could pass. We submit, Rin said aloud. The bay metal vibrated faintly. New text painted itself onto the wall panel. Charter received. Verify implementation. Restitution. Partial. Sale's breath hitched. It's responding. Mara's jaw clenched. It's not enough. The text updated. Implementation required. Disable propagation route. In presence of observer. Time window short. Rin's stomach tightened. It wants action now. Mara nodded once. We can reach the spine core in minutes. Sila's voice went tight. If you leave me here, the mandate will call it hostage-taking. Rin met her eyes. We don't take you anywhere, she said. You came. You're stuck because the keep said so, and you'll watch us cut our own reach. Pell's gaze sharpened. If you do this, he said quietly, you become weaker right as the mandate moves. Rin's voice was low. And we become less terrifying, she replied. That's the trade. Mara turned toward the bay exit. Move, she said. They left the meeting bay in a tight group. Humans, Concord envoy, Concord observer, walking through Helios corridors that suddenly felt unfamiliar without the mesh's gentle guidance. As they passed an access junction, a wall panel lit with a new schematic, Concord signatures gathering at the sole corridor, mandate signatures stacking behind them like teeth. Sela's face went pale. They're coming, she whispered. They're going to secure the node while you're denied. Pell's voice went very quiet, and they will call it stabilization. Rin felt her throat tighten. Then we have one window to prove we can restrain ourselves, she said. Mara's eyes hardened. And if we don't, she said, they'll restrain us forever. Ahead, the spine corridor lights shifted to that indifferent courthouse, white again. A sign appeared on a wall that hadn't held signage before. Audit route, follow. And as they stepped onto it, the deck under their boots hummed with the unmistakable sensation of being guided, not by any human hand, not by Concord law, but by the same old system that had just started rewriting who deserved a future. The corridor narrowed until it felt like Helios was swallowing them on purpose. Rin walked at the front because that was what happened when you said, I'll own it, and meant it. Mara paced half a step behind, eyes constantly moving, tracking doors, vents, seams, places bodies could emerge now that the mesh couldn't warn you. Sela and Pell kept close, suits sealed, visors up, not because they trusted Helios, because they didn't trust the mandate. The audit route light strip stayed courthouse, white, indifferent. Every junction they reached unsealed itself without any of Helios's usual soft chimes or polite prompts. Doors just decided they were allowed to be doors. A wall panel at the next junction rendered a single instruction in Helios typography, like a clerk stamping a file and sliding it forward. Propagation route, this way. Sale swallowed. It's taking us straight to the nerve, he muttered. It wants proof, Ilias said, voice tight. Not a promise. Sela's gaze flicked to Rin. You understand what you're doing, she said. Rin didn't look away. I understand the price, she replied. That's why we're doing it with you watching. Pell's visor angled slightly, recording. With us watching, he corrected, and there was a quiet emphasis on plural, as if he was building a witness chain that would survive politics. Mara's voice stayed low. And with the keep watching, she added. No one liked that reminder. They reached a hatch that should have required 3 separate mechanical keys and a biometric seal. It opened anyway. Inside was a chamber that felt older than Helios. Not ancient alien architecture, older in a different way, the way emergency systems are older, because they were built when people still believed they might die. The room was circular. Manual levers stood in a row on one wall like teeth. Thick conduits disappeared into the spine. In the center, a plain metal pedestal waited, empty, like it was there to hold a verdict. Sale stepped in and froze. "This is it," he whispered. "Root junction. Physical." Mara approached the lever bank and read the labels out loud because speaking them made them real. Propagation, root, active, intrusion template cache, distributed, override, governance. Her alloy fingers hovered over the first lever. Pell's voice was careful. "If you pull that," he said, "what do you lose?" Mara didn't answer. Rin did. "We lose speed," Rin said. "We lose the ability to coordinate at scale instantly. We lose the thing that makes us feel like one mind." Sila's eyes narrowed. "And you do this while a hostile block is mobilizing," she said. Rin nodded. "Because if we don't," she replied, "we become the hostile block." Sila's jaw tightened. "That's not how politics works," she said. Rin's voice went flat. "It is when the network decides who's allowed through a door." The chamber's air vibrated, faint as a tuning fork. Text appeared on the pedestal's top plate, as if the metal itself had learned to speak. Observers confirmed. "Action required." Mara looked at Rin. "Authorize," she said. Rin pulled the stamped charter from her suit pocket and held it up like a talisman. "Emergency force allowed only to prevent immediate loss of life," she said, reading the line. "This is not force. This is disarmament." She slid the charter toward Pell. "Witness," she said. Pell hesitated for half a heartbeat, long enough to show he understood the trap he was stepping into, then pressed his Concord seal to the margin again. Sela watched him do it, eyes sharp.
"You're signing yourself into blame,"
she said quietly. Pell's voice was calm, and it sounded like resignation. "Blame is cheaper than war," he said. Mara didn't wait for courage to settle into the room. She grabbed the propagation lever. Before she pulled, the chamber spoke again, not in Helios's layered voice, not in the wedge's minimal text, in the older structural tone that didn't care about feelings. "Confirm," it said. Mara's jaw flexed. "Confirm," she replied. She pulled. The lever dropped with a heavy physical clunk. No drama, no explosion, just a mechanical decision completed. Somewhere deep in Helios, 1,000 quiet processes died. Rin felt it like a pressure drop behind her eyes, not pain, disorientation. The strange loneliness of realizing how much of your confidence came from invisible coordination you no longer had. Sale's hands shook as he checked a local analog meter on the wall. "It's down," he whispered. "Propagation route disabled." Sila exhaled through her nose, slow. "You actually did it," she said, and there was disbelief under the words. Pell's visor angled toward the pedestal, the text updated. "Compliance observed. Clearance review, adjusting. Human. Risk lowered." Juno let out a breath that sounded like a laugh trying not to be one. Mara's voice stayed hard. "Not cleared," she said. "Just less unacceptable." The pedestal's text changed again. "Next condition, enforcement chain. No factional overrides." "Disclose enforcer." Silas' shoulders tightened. "It wants you to name who holds the leash," she said. Rin's mouth went dry. "We don't have a leash," she said automatically. Mara's eyes flicked to her. "We do," Mara said. "We've just been pretending it's voluntary." Pell's voice was low. "If you can't name an enforcer, the network will assume you can't restrain factions," he said, "and restraint appears to be its primary variable." Rin stared at the lever bank. "Governance override," a word that tasted like old fear. "You're asking us to formalize coercion," Rin said to the empty room. The structural voice didn't answer with morality. It answered with procedure. "Yes. Ship A incident report. Spine route, junction, local, air-gapped, propagation route, disabled. Mesh cohesion, degraded. External corridor access, unchanged. Recommendation, establish command clarity." A hard knock rolled through the spine, distant but deep. Not internal machinery. Docking resonance. Sela's eyes widened.
They're here,
she whispered. A wall panel flickered to a schematic feed. The chamber hadn't had a moment ago. Concord signatures clustering near the soul node, mandate signatures stacking behind them like teeth pressed against a door. And one more symbol appeared, small but sharp, a mandate skiff icon angled toward Helios's docking collar. They're piggybacking, Mara said, voice turning into steel, under Concord clearance. Pell's visor snapped up. They are not sanctioned, he said sharply. Sila's laugh was bitter. They don't need sanction, she said. They need a story. Rin's throat tightened. If mandate boards while the Keeper's auditing us, Helios fractures, she said. Our factions will explode. The pedestal text updated, as if the Keep had been listening to their fear and filing it. External aggression detected. Mandate. Network stability threatened. Human fracture risk high. Juno's face drained. It's going to partition us, they whispered. Mara's eyes narrowed.
It will if we look uncontrollable, she said.
Rin's hands trembled.
Then we don't look uncontrollable, she said. We implement the charter now.
Sila stared at her.
Implement how?
She demanded. You just cut your coordination nerve. Rin met her gaze. With bodies, she said, with visible restraint, with one chain of enforcement declared out loud, witnessed by you. Pell's voice went tight. If you declare an enforcer, the mandate will target them. Rin's mouth went dry. The trade-off slid into view like a knife on a table. Win, but it scars them. We don't have time to choose a perfect model, Rin said. We choose a survivable one. Mara's jaw flexed. Say it, she said. Rin looked at the pedestal, then at Sela, then at PL. Enforcer is Helios security, Rin said, voice steady through the shake. Bound by the charter, accountable to a physical quorum, witnessed by external observers. Mara didn't smile. Name, she said. Rin swallowed.
Mara Sato,
she said, until a broader council is formed. Sela's eyes sharpened. You're handing a knife to the person holding the knife, she said. Rin's voice went low. I'm putting the knife in a sheath, she replied. And I'm making you hold the latch. Pell's visor tilted. You understand this makes you vulnerable, he said. Rin nodded. Yes, she said. That's why it's credible. The pedestal text updated. Enforcer disclosed. Verify restraint under stress. Window open. Mara's comm bead, hardline only, chirped with a runner's ragged voice. Boarding attempt at collar 3, the runner gasped. Mandate moving now. Mara's posture tightened. That's the stress test, she said. Rin's heart hammered. Go, she said. But you go under the charter. Mara's gaze locked on Rin. Authorize, she said. Rin pulled the stamp from her pocket with shaking fingers and pressed it into the ink-pad sail kept in his suit kit like a relic. One stamp. Ilias stamped beside it, steady. Pell hesitated. One heartbeat of politics, and then pressed his witness seal. Sela put her thumbprint beside Pell's seal, raw and angry, as if she could bruise the document into meaning. Mara took the charter without looking at it again. She already knew what it cost. She turned and ran. Pell ran with her. Sela followed 2 steps behind, because she understood something now that the Concord chamber never taught. If you want to stop a war, you sometimes have to stand where the first punch lands. Rin watched them disappear into the audit-lit corridor, and the chamber felt suddenly empty without their gravity. The pedestal text flickered once more, like a quiet notification. Verification in progress. And beneath it, as if the Keep couldn't resist reminding them what kind of universe this was, do not fail twice. Mara heard the breach soar before she saw the hatch. It wasn't the cinematic kind of noise. It was patient, industrial. The sound of someone treating your ship like a door they're entitled to open. The audit route corridor dropped them into Collar 3's service bay without warning. Emergency strips bled red along the ribs. The air carried the faint bite of hot metal. The Concord cutter was already clamped to the collar. Sleek, neutral blue clamps blinking like paperwork. Under its shadow sat the mandate skiff, latched at an angle that made it look like a parasite pretending to be a limb. Pell stopped dead for half a breath when he saw it. They attached under my clearance, he said, voice tight enough to cut. Mara didn't waste breath on disgust. She raised her hand and her team fanned to hard cover, support struts, conduit stacks, the thick ribs of the collar itself. Ahead, the inner hatch was half cut. 2 Mandate Marines stood in the gap, suits matte and predatory, weapons held low in that infuriating way that said, "We're not threatening you, we're just here." A third voice came over an external speaker on the skiff command tone, polished. "Helios Security," it said. "Stand aside. Corridor stabilization is in progress." Mara stepped into open view, palms empty, posture straight. She let them see her as a person, not a system. "You're not stabilized," she said. "You're stealing." One of the Marines turned his helmet toward her, his visor adjusted, running her through whatever threat model the Mandate sold itself. "We are preventing further intrusion events," he said. Pell moved up beside Mara, deliberately, so the Mandate had to look at him too. "You are boarding under false authority," Pell said. "Detach your skiff." The command voice chuckled. "Archivist," it said, as if the title were a joke. "Your observer status does not override Mandate safety mandates." Pell's visor didn't tilt. "My clearance does," he said, and his calm had a tremor in it, controlled fury. Mara could feel the Keep's presence in the metal like a pressure drop, a silent audience that cared about outcomes, not feelings. Her team stayed still behind cover. No one fired, no one rushed. Restraint made visible. The Mandate Marine took a step forward, just enough to test whether Mara would flinch. "You're denied access to the lane," he said. "You're a hazard behind a wall. Let adults handle the corridor." Mara smiled without warmth. "Adults don't hide behind someone else's clamp codes," she said. Pell's voice cut in sharp. "Detach," he repeated. The command voice went colder. "We will proceed," it said. The Marine lifted his weapon. Mara did not draw first. She moved sideways, fast, slamming a manual bulkhead lever down. A section of the bay sealed with a heavy clang. Pressure bled. Not to vacuum, not to death. Just enough to tug at suits and turn confident steps into stumbles. Her people surged, low and disciplined, firing expanding seal foam into the hatch gap. The foam wasn't a bomb. It was shipyard material, fast hardening, ugly, and perfect for making a door stop being a door. The Mandate Marines fired stunners into the bay. Pulses snapped blue-white through the red light. One of Mara's officers took a hit and dropped hard, suit smoking faintly. He was alive. He was breathing. But he was down. Mara felt the old instinct rise. End it quickly. End it hard. The charter sat like a weight in her mind. Emergency force only to prevent immediate loss of life. This was still that. She fired one controlled shot into a Marine's shoulder actuator. The suit joint locked for half a second. That was all the time her team needed. They hit him like a wave pinning, stripping weapons, dragging him behind cover without turning it into punishment. The second Marine tried to push through the foam barrier and got an elbow to the chest plate that knocked his breath out. No gore, no heroics, just bodies refusing to give ground. The command voice turned sharp. "Hostile action recorded," it snapped. "Concord will be informed." Pell's visor snapped toward the skiff. "You are not Concord," he said. A pause. Then the command voice became a smile. "We are the Mandate," it said. "And we will make a clean report." Mara tasted the real threat there, not the stunners, the story. Tribunal of Inquiry fragment, Mandate after action draft, intercepted later. Humans initiated physical aggression against stabilization team. Observer Pell compromised by proximity. Recommend immediate containment buoy deployment. The foam barrier shuddered. Heat bit into it from the other side as the breach tool resumed, chewing patiently. Mara's officer, still groggy, looked up at her. "We can seal the collar completely," he rasped. Mara's jaw clenched. That would trap the Concord cutter too, trap Pell's witness, turn defense into hostage-taking with one lever. Pell's voice came through her suit private channel hardline runner. "Do not seal," he said. "If you trap a cleared vessel, the network will reclassify you. So will Concord." Mara's hands tightened until the alloy creaked. "Then stop them," she hissed. "I'm trying," Pell replied, and she heard movement behind his calm-raised voices, the scrape of boots. Someone on the cutter was pushing him, demanding he let Mandate assist. The foam barrier split. This time, the Mandate didn't lead with stunners. They rolled a cylinder into the bay that hissed and released glittering mist, sensor occlusion thick as cobwebs. Visibility collapsed to arm's length. Sound became the map. Mara dropped low, palm on the embedded deck rail. Her team did the same, using the rail like a spine to orient in the fog. Bootsteps approached, heavy, confident. Mara waited until the sound was close enough to be real, then lunged, grabbing a weapon arm and twisting. A stunner clattered to the deck. A Mandate Marine grunted, trying to wrench free. His suit was built for intimidation, not wrestling. Mara used that. She slammed him into the deck once hard enough to stun, not crack, and dragged him backward into a manual containment alcove. No smart locks, no hacks, a thick door and a bolt. The fog swirled. 5 more shadows pushed at the hatch. Behind them, something bulkier, an exosuit with a cutting rig mounted like a forearm. Not subtle, not inspection. An intent to take. Mara's mind ran the geometry. Objective: keep them away from the interface conduits. Constraints: no collar seal, minimal harm, no intrusion. Tactic: make the corridor itself hostile to their footing. She yanked a manual gravity slider. For 1 second, gravity spiked. Not enough to crush. Enough to turn the exosuit's forward step into a slammed kneel. Metal shrieked as the cutting rig sparked against the hatch frame. Mara's team surged into the moment, hooking arms, shoving the exosuit sideways into the foam barrier. The rig swung like a club, missed by centimeters, scorched a conduit casing. Mara fired 2 pulses into the exosuit's joint actuators. The suit locked mid-swing. Then a calm voice cut through the fog from the cutter side.
Cease!
Pell stepped into the bay, helmet on, moving with a decisiveness that didn't fit his archive-born body. 2 Concord security officers followed behind him, weapons low but ready. Pell didn't point his weapon at the Mandate. He didn't need to. He raised his wrist and spoke into the cutter's clamp controls. "Cutter," Pell said. "Disengage clamp." The Concord officers stiffened. "Archivist." Pell's voice turned iron. "Disengage, now." Mara's breath caught. If the clamp released, the cutter would pull back fine, but the Mandate skiff was piggybacked under its shadow. Lose the borrowed alignment, and the skiff would scrape the collar hard, maybe breach, maybe kill everyone on both sides. Pell didn't blink. The clamp lights flickered. Then the collar shuddered. The cutter's clamp unlocked with a mechanical sigh. The cutter pulled back on its own thrusters, slow and controlled. The Mandate skiff lurched as its borrowed geometry vanished. Its breach tool bit empty space for a heartbeat. The hull scraped the collar rim with a scream of metal. The skiff's operators fought to stabilize, and in that second of chaos, the Mandate Marines hesitated. Pell's voice came again, cold and clear. "You do not board under my shadow," he said. A kestrel command voice snapped back over external comms. "You will answer for this, Archivist." Pell's reply was quiet. "I already am." Mara felt something shift in the bay morality, becoming a lever. Pell, sympathetic and right early, had just shoved himself under the wheels of his own politics. The fog thinned as the occluder dispersed. The Mandate Marines pulled back toward their skiff, anger replacing confidence. And then the keep drew a line. A thin stitch of light cut across the collar deck between Pell and the retreating Mandate Marines, perfectly straight, perfectly indifferent. The Marines stopped short as if the air had thickened. It wasn't a weapon, it was a refusal. Pell's visor tilted toward the light line, and for the first time, his calm looked truly unsettled. Mara felt it too, the sense that the audience in the metal had just leaned forward. Hfy incident report, collar 3 local log, air-gapped, boundary geometry manifested, non-native signature. Trigger, Mandate advance toward cleared observer. Outcome, separation enforced without injury. The kestrel adjutant feathers bristling, eyes bright with controlled rage, appeared at the skiff's hatch half in shadow.
"You think that line saves you?"
He hissed. Mara's voice was flat.
"It saves stability," she said.
The adjutant smiled with all his teeth. "Then we'll destabilize somewhere else," he said, and signaled his people back into the skiff. The skiff peeled away from the collar, thrusters flaring in short, violent bursts. It didn't retreat far. It repositioned, hunting angles. Pell turned his helmet toward Mara. "They will report that Helios assaulted a cleared operation," he said. Mara's jaw tightened. "We defended our hull," she replied. Pell's voice went softer, and that softness carried weight. "Truth is not what holds corridors open," he said. "Stability is." Mara didn't like hearing her own logic from an alien mouth. A wall panel near the collar blinked, then rendered text in Helios typography as if the system wanted to be understood. Verification update. Restraint under stress observed. External aggression. Mandate confirmed. Clearance review reconsidering. Mara's breath caught, not relief. A new kind of fear, hope attached to something that could be withdrawn. Pell stared at the wall text.
"It sees them,"
he whispered. Mara's voice was rough.
"Good."
Then Sale's hardline runner crackled in Mara's ear, urgent and broken. "Spine platform 7 key." Static ripped, then the words that mattered landed clean and sharp. "They're moving again. Without the mesh, they're using bodies. The keep is drawing partitions. It's close to severing cohesion." Mara felt her stomach drop. If Helios fractured now, the keep would lock it into islands for stability. Concord would call it proof they were a hazard. Mandate would call it permission. Pell's voice tightened. "If the keep severs cohesion while fleets are in approach, the corridor will panic," he said. Mara turned from the collar, already moving.
"Then we don't give it a reason,"
she said. Pell fell into step beside her. "You can't control 10 trillion minds with a stamped sheet," he said. Mara's eyes narrowed. "No," she said, "but I can control the one swinging wrenches." Pell's visor angled toward her. "And if your enforcement looks like a crackdown, Mandate wins the story," he warned. Mara didn't slow. "Then you stand next to me," she said, "and you call it what it is." Pell's voice went quiet. "That will ruin me." Mara's reply was low and honest. "Welcome." They ran back into the spine's audit-lit corridors, following the faint hum of shifting geometry toward the fracture. Behind them, the collar lights blinked steady blue, pretending everything was procedural. Ahead, Helios was about to decide whether restraint was real when it hurt. And somewhere under Sol's half-built shell, the keep continued its clearance review. Not as a negotiation, but as an audit with one question left unanswered. Could humans restrain humans when the knife was in their own hand? The keep didn't need to raise its voice to change the temperature of a corridor. Mara felt it before she heard it. An almost subsonic hum in the ribs, like the structure was tightening its grip on itself. Pell kept pace beside her, and every few seconds his visor flicked to the floor, checking for new light lines the way you'd check for cracks in ice. They took the fastest path back to Platform 7, but fast. In Helios, without the mesh meant corners and boots and lungs. It meant time you could count in heartbeats. Halfway through a junction, the audit route lights blinked once and shifted from courthouse white to emergency red. A wall panel rendered 3 words in Helios typography, neat as a stamp. Fracture event imminent. Pell's voice went tight. "That means violence," he said. "That means momentum," Mara replied. "And momentum is what the keep hates." They reached the Platform 7 access bay just as the first wave hit the boundary lines. Not people crossing, people pressing. Clusters pushing along the glowing partitions, searching for gaps, leveraging corners, using bodies because bodies were the only tools they had left. Kay Voss stood on the far side of a containment polygon, baton in hand, face bright with the dangerous calm of someone who had decided she would rather burn than be caged. She spotted Mara and Pell and smiled as if she'd been waiting for them. "There," Kay called across the light line, voice carrying. "The Concorde's pet witness returns. How's the collar? Did you learn what stabilize means when the mandate says it?" Pell didn't rise to it. He scanned the floor, the boundaries, the crowd density. "Key Voss," he said, calm. "Stand down. Your movement is creating a fracture risk. The keep will answer with partitions." Kai laughed once, sharp. "Partitions are already here," she said. "Your keep is already deciding where we're allowed to breathe." Mara stepped forward, stopping at the edge of the boundary line. Her team fanned behind her without being told, muscle memory replacing mesh. "Ka," Mara said, voice flat. "You push this into a riot and you give the mandate a clean story." Ka's eyes glittered. "And if I don't push," she said, "the mandate writes the story anyway." Behind Kay's cluster, a group of workers, real flesh, printed bodies, exo-sleeves, had a freight sled half wedged against a boundary corner, trying to force a gap with weight. Not to break the keep's line, nothing broke it, but to use it like a wall that trapped people who weren't on their side. Mara saw it immediately. If the keep interpreted that as humans harming humans, it wouldn't just draw lines. It would cut cohesion again. Permanent islands. Pell saw it too, his voice sharpened. "Stop," he snapped. "Not at Mara, not at Kay, but at the crowd itself. If you injure each other under audit, you will be denied." Some people hesitated. Some didn't. Fear had momentum. Mara lifted her hand and made a single gesture, 2 fingers down, then open palm. Her team spread wide, not charging, not striking, just moving into sightlines, making the corridor feel full of capable bodies without making it feel like a crackdown. She needed this to read as restraint, not suppression. Pell stepped forward beside her, visibly, deliberately, so every camera and eye could record the fact that a Concord observer stood in the same danger as Helios security. "Kay Voss," Pell said, louder now. "You have been offered a procedural path. You are refusing it." Kay's smile turned thin. "Procedural paths are how cages get built," she replied. Mara's jaw clenched. "Then give me a better one," she said. Kay opened her mouth, and the floor hummed. A new light line drew itself, fast, slicing between the freight sled and the bodies around it. The sled's grave skids hissed as it bumped the invisible refusal and stopped dead. No one fell. No one was shocked. They were simply prevented from using weight as a weapon. The keep's older voice vibrated through the platform ribs. "Escalation interdicted," it said. Pell's visor angled up, then down. "It's intervening," he murmured. Kay's face twitched with fury. "See?" she shouted. "You don't need a charter. You have a judge with a hard pen." Mara didn't flinch. "And if you keep pushing," she said, "the judge stops using pens and starts using knives." Key's eyes narrowed. Empty threat. Mara's voice dropped. "Not from me," she said. "Hfy incident report. Platform 7 local monitor. Air-gapped. Partition geometry updated. 2 new interdict lines. Trigger, mass pressure against boundary corners. Outcome, mobility restricted, no injuries." Pell turned slightly, speaking low into his suit runner. "Rin Malkova is not here," he said to Mara. "You need the public face. Without it, your enforcement reads like pure force." Mara's jaw tightened. "Runner is bringing her," she said. Kay watched their exchange and smiled like she could taste leverage. "Ah," she said, voice sweet, waiting for the stamp holder, waiting for permission. Mara met Kay's gaze. "Waiting for verification," she corrected. Kay's expression hardened. "Verification won't feed us," she said. "Verification won't open the lane." Pell's voice cut in, calm but sharp. "Verification is the only thing preventing the mandate from dragging your civilization into a legal box and sitting on the lid," he said. Kay's baton lifted, pointing at Pell. "You think you're saving us," she said. "You're teaching us how to kneel." Pell's eyes didn't blink. "I'm teaching you how to survive without becoming the reason the lane shuts," he replied. A runner burst into the access bay then, helmet under one arm, breath ragged, face flushed. Rin followed 2 steps behind, oil-stained fingers gripping the stamped charter like it was the last solid thing in a shifting world. She took in the scene. Key penned, crowds pressing, new interdict lines without slowing. Logistics minds didn't waste time on shock. Rin stepped to the boundary line beside Mara and Pell and raised the charter high enough for the nearest clusters to see the ink and seals. "We're under audit," Rin called, voice raw but steady. "The keep denied us because of intrusion. We cut the propagation route. We're enforcing restraint now." A shout from the crowd, "You cut our teeth." Another, "The mandate is boarding anyway." Rin didn't flinch. "The mandate tried," she snapped back, "and failed because Concord saw it and the keep saw it." Pell's visor angled toward Rin. His voice was low. "Careful," he warned. "Do not imply the keep is on your side." Rin's jaw tightened. "It's not on our side," she said loudly. "For everyone. It's on stability's side. That's why we have to act like adults." Key laughed once, bitter. "Adults," she echoed. "Adults don't accept being locked out of their own future." Rin stared at Key. Adults accept that if you burn your neighbor's house down, you don't get invited to dinner, she said. Key's eyes flashed. We didn't burn anything, she snapped. Rin's voice went sharp. Someone in your cluster tried to crawl into Sila Naran's suit, she said. That's the fire. That's why we're denied. A ripple through the crowd, anger and discomfort mixing in equal measure. Key's baton lowered a fraction. And your answer, she said, voice low, is to let Mara police us. Rin lifted the charter again. My answer is to bind Mara, she said, with ink, with witnesses, with consequences. She turned slightly toward Pell. Archivist, she said, you saw the mandate. Piggyback your clearance. You know what happens if Helios fractures. Pell's voice was quiet. Containment becomes politically inevitable, he said. Rin nodded once. Then we make it politically expensive, she said, starting now. She held the charter out toward Keynot across the boundary line, just visible. K. Voss, Rin said, under the interim enforcement charter, you are required to stand down from any node, adjacent mobilization until clearance review concludes. K's smile was sharp. And if I refuse? Rin didn't look away. Then you become the uncontrolled override, she said, and the keep will answer you without caring whether you meant well. Kay stared at the glowing lines on the deck like she wanted to bite them. Then she looked at the crowd behind her. Her people, pressed into a box they couldn't break. She understood something in that moment, and it cracked through her anger. This wasn't a debate, it was physics with paperwork. Kay's voice dropped, barely audible. You're choosing a cage, she said. Rin's answer was quieter. I'm choosing a cage we can open later, she said. Instead of one, the mandate welds shut. Kay's jaw trembled, fury and fear wrestling in her throat. She lowered her baton fully. Fine, she said, and the word tasted like poison. I stand down. A breath went through the platform, relief that nobody wanted to admit. Mara's teams moved, not grabbing Kay, not humiliating her. 2 officers approached the access corridor the keep had left open into the containment polygon and stopped at the threshold, palms visible. Escort, one said, calm, not arrest. Kay laughed under her breath. Semantics, she muttered, but she stepped toward them anyway. The moment she crossed into the corridor, the containment polygon's light lines dimmed slightly, as if the keep had relaxed its hand a fraction. Rin felt the floor hum under her boots. A wall panel near the dais lit and rendered a short update. Enforcement chain, observed. Factional override, mitigated. Clearance review, conditional path open. Sale's voice crackled over a hardline runner, urgent. Node interface sector keep is requesting. Enforcer disclosure again. Concord Task Force is assembling. Mandate fleet probing corridor edges. Pell's visor tilted toward Rin. You bought minutes, he said quietly. Use them. Rin nodded once. We go to the node interface, she said. We disclose the enforcement chain in front of Concord. We bind it publicly. We give the keep the last variable it's demanding. Mara's jaw clenched. And we paint a target on ourselves, she said. Rin's voice went low. We already have targets, she replied. At least this one comes with witnesses. Pell turned toward the transit line. Then move, he said, before Mandate finds a new angle. They started toward the spine corridor. Behind them, the platform hummed with restrained panic, the kind that could flare back up the second someone yelled the wrong sentence. And ahead of them, the keep's audit route lights returned to courthouse. White guiding them toward the node like a clerk sliding a file to the edge of a desk, waiting for the next signature that would decide whether a species was allowed to keep growing. Near the transit junction, a final line of text appeared on the wall, small and chilling in its simplicity. Condition window, closing. The node interface sector smelled like hot insulation and old metalwork smells, not ceremony. Courthouse white strips traced the audit route straight into the room, as if the keep had decided there would be no more detours. Concord security stood in a disciplined half-circle around the interface, dais, weapons low, posture tight. Their commander broad-shouldered under a heavier suit, visor upturned as Mara, Rin, Pell, Sila, Sale, and Ilias entered. Her eyes went straight to Pell. Archivist, she said. You disengaged Clamp without authorization. Pell didn't deny it. Mandate boarded under my shadow, he replied. I removed the shadow. The commander's gaze slid to Rin's hands, to the stamped charter, to Mara's team behind her with weapons that looked deliberately dull. And Helios security escorted a political agitator under air-gapped rules, the commander said. Rin lifted the charter. Yes, she said, under external witness. Sela stood slightly behind Rin's shoulder, jaw clenched. She had the look of someone who knew exactly what would be said about her in an inquiry room she couldn't reach. The commander's mouth tightened. "You're asking Concord to believe you can restrain yourselves," she said. Rin met her gaze. "We're showing you," she replied. A wall panel on the far side of the room lit without being prompted. Not Concord UI, not Helios's usual interface. A clean, spare rendering, as if reality itself was tired of everyone's branding. Disclose, Enforcer. No factional overrides. Verify under stress. Mara's alloy fingers flexed. "There it is," she said softly. The commander stared at the wall text, then at Pell. "This is what you call the keep," she said. Pell's voice went careful. "It's an enforcement layer," he said. "The network's spine. We built laws around it." "We did not build it." The commander's eyes narrowed. "And it's talking through Helios's hardware." "It's rendering through Helios," Sale said, too fast. He caught himself and forced his tone down. "Not using intrusion. It's overriding local display permission." Rin didn't look away from the wall panel. She addressed it like it could be shamed by honesty. "Enforcer is Helios security," Rin said, voice steady, bound by the charter. "Accountable to a physical quorum, witnessed by Concord." Mara's jaw clenched, but she didn't contradict. The wall text updated. "Name." Scylla exhaled through her nose. "It wants a throat to grab," she murmured. Rin's voice didn't shake. "Marasato," she said. "Interim. Temporary. With external witness required for any emergency action beyond immediate life protection." The commander's eyes snapped to Mara. "You're granting one person extraordinary authority," she said, accusation loaded into each syllable. Rin didn't flinch. "We're binding that authority to a paper chain you can hold," she replied, "because without that you'll bind us with fleets." Mara looked at the commander. "You want stability," she said. "I want it too. But if you push us into being a hazard, you will get the hazard you're afraid of." The commander's mouth tightened. "That sounds like a threat." "It's a forecast," Mara replied. Pell stepped forward half a pace, placing himself in the line between Mara and the commander like a living disclaimer. "Commander," he said, "Mandate has already demonstrated willingness to exploit clearance. Their objective is not just stability, it is dominance." The commander's jaw clenched. "Mandate is an ally." Pell's voice went colder. "Mandate is a faction with teeth," he said, "and teeth like to be the only thing that bites." Tribunal inquiry fragment. Anchor internal message leaked. Commander Roset requests authority to secure Archivist Pell upon return. Reason, compromised by proximity to hazard. Status, pending. A chime sounded from the interface, days-old hardware, analog tone. A corridor schematic bloomed above it. Concord ships clustered near the Sol Lane mouth like a cautious hand. Behind them, mandate signatures threaded through the same space, probing for angles, testing every rule boundary like predators circling a fence. One mandate icon blinked closer than the rest. Boarding skiff. Again. Sela's eyes narrowed. "They're not stopping," she said. The commander's gaze snapped to her. "Counselor Naren," she said, and there was surprise under the control. "You're here." "I couldn't leave," Sela replied. "Your network wouldn't let me." The commander's mouth tightened. "You acted without authorization." Scylla's laugh was thin. "Your authorization was going to become a war," she said. "So I acted." Pell didn't look at Scylla, but Rin saw the tension in his posture. He was already paying for her choice, too. The wall panel updated again, and the air in the sector felt like it tightened around the words. Mandate, probing. Stability threat, rising. Human fracture risk, still present. Rin swallowed. "It's warning us," she whispered. Mara's eyes stayed on the schematic. "It's warning everyone," she corrected. "And it's about to decide who it trusts less." The commander spoke into her handheld comm unit old style, no mesh. "Concord Task Force," she said. "Hold position. No containment deployment without my explicit order." A reply came back tight and immediate. "Mandate is requesting authorization to deploy stabilizer buoys. They claim Helios instability warrants it." Sila's jaw clenched. "Stabilizer buoys," she said. That's how they start building cages that look like safety. Pell's voice went very quiet. If buoys go down, the keep may interpret it as corridor manipulation, he said, and respond by shutting everything. The commander looked at the wall text like she was bargaining with it silently. Mara broke the silence first. We need to change the environment, she said. The commander's eyes snapped to her. Meaning? Mara gestured toward the node interface hardware. Right now, the only signals the keep trusts are aggression and restress, she said. We've shown restraint. Mandate is showing aggression, but the keep still reads human fracture risk. Rin's throat tightened. Because we still have factions, she said. Because you still have unknown internal overrides, the commander corrected. And unknowns are what law exists to control. Sale's eyes flicked to the lever bank deeper in the sector. Manual controls still present because Helios had never stopped loving redundancy. We can reduce unknowns, Sale said carefully, not with intrusion, with transparency. Mara's eyes narrowed. Say it. Sale swallowed. We publish the enforcement chain physically, he said. We put the charter into Concord custody as well as Helios custody. We install a hardline kill switch that any 2 of 3 witnesses can trigger to disable Helios security escalation systems. Silence hit like cold water. Rin stared at him. You're proposing a veto, she said. I'm proposing predictability, Sale replied. The keep is asking who holds the leash. We answer, the leash has more than one hand. Sealer's mouth tightened. You're letting Concord hold it too. Rin's voice was low. That's a scar, she said. Mara's jaw flexed. That's a vulnerability, she said. Pell's voice was softer. That's a way to keep Mandate from writing the only story available, he said. The commander looked at Pell, then at Rin, then at Mara. You would allow Concord to shut down your enforcement capacity, she said. Rin didn't hesitate. If it prevents permanent containment, she said. Yes, temporarily. Sila's eyes sharpened. And politically, she said to the commander. It gives you something to hold up at the anchor and say, they're not a hazard we can't govern. They're a hazard that agreed to be governable. The commander's mouth tightened. And if Helios lies, Mara's voice was flat, then trigger the switch, she said, and watch Helios crumble into factions while Mandate smiles. Rin flinched at that but didn't contradict. Honesty hurt more than fear. The wall panel pulsed with new text, as if it had been waiting for exactly this sentence of willingness. Proposed, multi-witness shutdown capability. Submit hardline token. Verify installation. Rin's breath caught. It's accepting the concept. The commander stared at the wall. It's negotiating, she whispered. Pell shook his head slightly. It's not negotiating, he said. It's auditing. We just offered a control that reduces instability. It wants proof. Mara stepped toward the lever bank. We can build the token, she said. Now, here. She looked at Rin. Authorize under the charter, she said, in front of witnesses. Rin pulled the stamp out again, hands shaking with fatigue now instead of fear. Ilias stamped beside her. Pell watched, then pressed his seal. The commander hesitated, then pressed her own unit mark. Witness, not approval. Sila pressed her thumb beside it again, leaving a print like a bruise. Mara turned to the hardware with the kind of focus she usually reserved for threats. Seal, she said. You and I wire it. Hardline. Dumb as a rock. Seal nodded, already moving. Pell stepped closer, recording. The commander stood still, eyes fixed on Mara's hands. Mara's hands didn't shake, not because she wasn't afraid, because she didn't allow herself the luxury. They worked fast. A junction box opened, heavy copper lines were rerouted, a physical key slot was mounted, no wireless, no remote. A 3-part token, 1 key held by Helios Governance, 1 by Concord Command, 1 by the Observer's Office. Any 2 keys, turned together within 5 seconds, would drop Helios security escalation systems into a minimal state for 1 hour. Enough time to stop a coup. Enough time to stop an internal override from becoming another intrusion event. Enough time to be murdered by a fleet if you trusted the wrong people. Rin watched and felt something inside her twist. They weren't building a weapon. They were building a self-limiter in public, a scar made into hardware. Sale tightened the final bolt and stepped back, breathing hard. Installed, he said. The wall panel updated instantly. Token received. Installation verified. Human fracture risk reduced. Rin exhaled, and it felt like she hadn't breathed in hours. Then the next line appeared, and the room went cold. Clearance human. Limited. Scope. Emergency service only. Window 1 hours. Mara stared. Limited clearance, she whispered. Seela's eyes widened. Emergency service, she repeated. Pell's visor tilted slightly. The network is allowing humans to move when worlds burn, he said softly, not when they want to expand. Rin swallowed. Logistics monsters, but now the job was mercy under audit. The commander's voice was tight. Define emergency service, she demanded. The wall answered without caring how she felt. Criteria: civilian life threat, corridor failure, mass casualty prevention, prohibition, expansion, military advantage, unconsented access. Mara let out a breath that sounded like a laugh turned into a cough. It's putting us on a leash, she said. Rin's voice was low. It's giving us a job, she said. One that proves we can be trusted. Pell's gaze flicked to the corridor schematic, where mandate signatures still probed. The Kestrel adjutant's voice cut in over an external channel, bold enough to be heard, like he wanted witnesses too. Concord, he said, smooth and dangerous. Your observer has compromised corridor security. Authorize mandate containment boys now, or we will act independently. The commander's jaw clenched. Pell went still. The wall panel updated one more time, and the air vibrated like a verdict being stamped. Mandate disallowed. Independent action will trigger corridor lock. Sila's breath hitched. If they push, the keep slams the door on everyone. And they'll blame Helios, the commander said, voice tight. Pell's visor angled toward Mara. If Mandate wants a story, he said quietly, they'll make one. Mara's eyes hardened. Then we don't let them choose the scene, she said. Rin's stomach dropped. Mara held up a hand. Not violence, she said. Logistics. She pointed at the schematic at a nearby lane where a civilian convoy icon blinked amber. A traffic cluster that had been rerouted by the corridor's instability, now drifting into a dangerous intersection of probe ships and sensor fog. Emergency service, Mara said. Right now. We use the limited clearance the Keep just offered to save civilians in front of Concord cameras. We prove what we are. Pell's voice went tight. Mandate will intercept. Then they intercept under a disallowed flag, Mara replied. And the Keep sees it. The commander stared at Mara, then at the wall text. You're proposing a humanitarian run as a political act. Rin swallowed and nodded. We move fast, she said, because that's what humans do. But we do it under constraints. Seela's voice went low. And if you fail, she said, Mandate gets its story and the Keep locks the corridor. Mara didn't look away from the schematic. Then we don't fail, she said. The wall panel flickered once more. Clearance window start. A timer appeared. 59, 58, 57, and in the corridor schematic a thin, pale route line lit up. Not to expand. Not to conquer. To respond. Mara turned to her team. Ships, she said. Now. Minimal arms, full rescue kit, hardline comms only. Rin grabbed her own suit helmet and sealed it with shaking hands. If we do this, she whispered to Pell as they moved, you're going to be blamed for letting us through. Pell's voice was quiet, almost gentle. I was already blamed the moment I told the truth, he said. As they sprinted for the launch bay, the Kestrel adjutant's voice echoed one last time over the open channel, colder now. Enjoy your hour, he said. We'll make sure it ends badly. The timer kept counting down, and the corridor route glowed like a fuse that had just been lit. The launch bay doors opened on a corridor that looked like a bruise. Not black space, lane space. The kind of folded geometry that made sensors argue with themselves and made every pilot feel, deep in their bones, that something older than engines was deciding whether their ship deserved to move. A pale route line glowed on the nav display like a leash. 58 minutes, 41 seconds, Mara stood on the bridge of a stripped-down rescue cutter that looked unfinished on purpose. No parade paint, no aggressive silhouettes. External hardpoints were empty except for tow rigs, foam canisters, med bays, and drone racks full of repair swarms. Rin sat in the co-pilot cradle, hands locked on manual controls, as if she could keep the universe steady by gripping it hard enough. Pel was strapped into a rear station, recording to a physical core. The Concord commander, still unnamed, still all angles, stood behind him with her helmet clipped to her belt, as if refusing to sit made her less complicit. Scylla rode in the bay's observation blister, face tight, eyes unblinking. Juno was beside her, mic open, ready to speak in whatever tone kept this from becoming a war. Sale and Ilias weren't on the ship, they were back in Helios, trying to keep the charter from collapsing under the weight of fear. The keep's timer ticked in the corner of every display, 58 minutes, 12 seconds. A new line rendered itself under the countdown, clean and indifferent, objective, prevent loss of civilian life. Constraint, no military advantage. Observers, Concord present. Rin swallowed. It's watching the category, not the species, she murmured. Mara didn't look away from the route line. It's watching behavior, she said. Stay inside the box. The ship slid forward. The lane folded, and the civilian convoy appeared ahead as a cluster of dim lights drifting through wrongness. 3 haulers, 1 passenger barge, 1 escort tug with a cracked hull panel venting a thin line of vapor. They weren't military. They were what held the Concord together, cargo, commuters, families moving between habitats because commerce was how civilizations pretended they were safe. The convoy's traffic beacons blinked amber distress, not a broadcast plea. A quiet automated signal that said, "Our path is broken and we can't fix it alone." Rin's heart tightened. "They're caught near a shear boundary," she said. "Lane geometry is slipping." Pel's voice was low, almost reverent. "If civilians die while the keep is granting you this window," he didn't finish, because everyone in the bridge could finish it. The story would calcify in a day. Humanity given access. Humanity fails. Lock them out forever. Mara keyed a tight beam on dumb carrier. No clever handshakes, nothing that could be called intrusion. "This is Helios Emergency Service," she transmitted. "We have a stability corridor. We are here to tow and patch. Do not change course unless instructed by your own crew." A reply came back, crackling, frightened but steady. "Concord Convoy Delta 7, a voice said. "Our nav keeps refusing solutions. Our escort tug lost steerage. We have 27 life pods, 600 passengers. We can't." The voice broke, then steadied. "We can't hold this lane edge much longer." Rin's hands moved over manual sliders. "Tow priority is the tug," she said. "If it drifts, it drags the barge with it. If the barge hits the shear." She didn't say the rest. She didn't need to. Mara nodded once. "Drones out," she said. "Foam patch. 2 line on the tug. Keep distance. No aggressive burns." The repair swarm deployed, tiny lights spilling from the cutter's belly like sparks in water. They weren't armed. They were printed tools with one job: keep metal from becoming vacuum. The tow rig extended like a careful hand. Rin kept her voice calm because panic was contagious. "Convoy Delta 7, she transmitted. "We are aligning tow. Stay steady. Do not fire any counter-thrusters unless your tug captain says so." "Understood," the convoy replied. 53 minutes 09 seconds. The first problem hit before the tow line latched. A cluster of new signatures slid into the near field, fast, angular, and deliberate. Mandate skiffs. They didn't jump in with a flare. They bled into the lane along the edges, where the geometry was already unstable, like predators moving through tall grass. Pel's shoulders tightened. The Concord commander's eyes went hard. Mara's jaw clenched. "They're here for the scene." A mandate hail came through on open channel, loud enough to be overheard by every ship with a receiver. "Unverified Helios vessels," a smooth voice announced. "You are operating under disputed corridor clearance. Stand down and await stabilization authority." Rin's stomach turned. Disputed. Authority. Words built to make intervention sound like crime. The convoy's captain replied, voice shaking. "We are losing steerage. Maintain position," the mandate voice cut in. "Helios involvement increases hazard." Mara didn't answer the mandate. She didn't give them an argument to clip into a briefing. She kept working. Tow line locked to the tug with a soft clunk. The tug's cracked panel sealed under foam, white and ugly and functional. The tug's captain, breathing hard over comms, said, "We have partial steerage, thank you. Lane is still slipping." Rin's eyes flicked to the nav. The sheer boundary was creeping closer, like a tide line. Then Mandate did what Mandate always did when it wanted to look clean. They deployed buoys. Not the big containment lattice they'd demanded earlier, small stabilizers. Shiny, harmless-looking spheres that claimed to smooth traffic. They drifted toward the convoy like polite minefields. Pell's voice went sharp. "Those are corridor anchors," he said. "They can alter lane behavior." The Concord commander's mouth tightened. "And they can make it look like Helios caused any instability when the anchors bite." Mara's voice stayed flat. "They're provoking a lock." The Keep's text appeared on Mara's display without being asked. Mandate action disallowed. Warning: disallowed interference increases lock risk. The Mandate boys didn't stop. Rin's hands tightened on controls. "If those anchors touch the shear boundary, they could yank the whole segment," she said. "Civilians die." Mara's eyes narrowed. "Then we keep the convoy away from the boundary," she said. "Tow harder." "That looks like aggressive maneuvering," Pell warned. Mara didn't blink. "Then we do it slow," she said, "and we narrate it." Juno's voice came on channel, calm as a hand on a shaking shoulder. "Mandate vessels," Juno said. "You are disallowed by corridor enforcement. Your buoys are increasing civilian risk. Withdraw." The Mandate voice laughed, soft. "Human mouthpiece," it said. "You have no standing." Juno didn't rise to it. "Civilians have standing," they replied. "Move." 47 minutes 22 seconds. The second problem hit like a punch you couldn't see. The lane shuddered. Not a physical shake, an algorithmic one. A shift in the corridor's allowed vectors as the Keep tried to compensate for disallowed anchors and probe ships. The convoy's barge yawed a few degrees and started drifting sideways, slow at first, then faster as the tug's tow line took strain.
"Tow line tension spike!"
Rin snapped.
"If it snaps!"
Mara didn't hesitate. "Secondary line," she said. "Now." A second tow rig extended and latched to the barge's forward collar, not to pull, just to stabilize yaw. The rescue cutter's engines burned gently, trimming drift with precise, non-threatening thrust. It was the opposite of a battle burn. It was patience under pressure. Mandate skiffs repositioned, trying to get between the rescue cutter and the convoy without firing. They were doing blockade with plausible deniability. One skiff slid too close. Its wake lane, wake, not exhaust, nudged a stabilizer buoy into the convoy's path. Pell's breath caught. "That's a kill move disguised as traffic." The Concord commander's voice went tight. "If you fire." "We don't," Mara said. Rin's brain raced. No weapons, no military advantage, but they had tools. She slapped a manual release on the cutter's belly. A cloud of printed chaff spilled into the lane, not metal shards, not shrapnel. Foam pellets designed to expand into soft barriers that absorbed momentum. The kind of thing shipyards used to catch loose parts in microgravity. The pellets bloomed into a drifting cushion between the buoy and the convoy. The buoy hit the cushion and slowed, its anchor field trying to bite into nothing solid. The convoy's tug slid past, tow lines taut, civilians holding breath behind thin hulls. The Mandate skiff's commander cursed over open channel, finally losing the smooth voice. Human interference. Pell's eyes flicked to the Keep's overlay, if it classifies that as military. The Keep's text appeared immediate. Action classified, rescue buffer. Permitted. Rin exhaled. The Mandate skiffs hesitated for half a second, recalibrating their story. Then they did the ugliest thing yet. They fired a stunner burst, not at the rescue cutter, at the civilian tug. A wide pulse that didn't pierce hulls but could fry external control surfaces and make a ship look like it failed. The tug's lights blinked, its steerage faltered, the barge yawed again. 600 passengers became a number that could die. Mara's voice went razor flat. "That's it." The Concord commander's hand hovered near her weapon. "You are not authorized." Mara didn't look at her, she looked at Pell. "Witness," Mara said. Pell's visor tilted. He understood the trap and stepped into it anyway. "Eyewitness Mandate hostile interference with civilian vessel," Pell said, voice steady. Log recorded. The Keep's text appeared like a stamp. Mandate hostility confirmed. Human response permitted within rescue scope. 39 minutes, A6 seconds, Mara's cutter burned forward. Not a charge, a dive into the convoy's shadow. She deployed a tether drone that latched to the tug's aft collar and forced a manual override link through physical contact, not network intrusion. Rin's hands flew over manual inputs.
I can feed steerage through the tether, she said.
Done line, no hacking.
Do it,
Mara said. The tug's captain gasped over comms as control returned. We have response. Keep it steady, Rin said, voice tight. We're pulling you out. Mandate skiffs surged to intercept, emboldened by the chaos they created. The keep drew a light line in the lane itself, an invisible boundary that became visible on Helios displays as a hard exclusion zone. One Mandate skiff clipped that zone. Its hull didn't explode. It simply stopped being allowed to be there. Its engines flared uselessly against a geometry that refused its vector. The skiff drifted, helpless, like a predator caught in a trap it didn't understand. The Mandate commander's voice snapped into panic, then regained its smoothness with effort. Concord, it barked. Your corridor is compromised. Your observer is compromised. Pell's reply was cold. Your aggression is disallowed, he said. Withdraw. The convoy's barge cleared the shear boundary by meters. Then the lane shuddered again. This time, the keep didn't wait. A new message flashed across every Helios and Concord display in the lane segment. Lock warning, 05 minutes. Cause. Disallowed actors remain present. The timer began. FO4 minutes, 59 seconds. FO4 minutes, 58 seconds. Sealer's voice came through the rescue cutter's blister mic, tight with urgency. If the lane locks with civilians in segment, they're trapped, Rin finished, throat dry. Mara's eyes went hard. Mandate will not withdraw in time, she said. They want the lock so they can blame us. Pell's voice went quiet. Then we need to remove the disallowed actors from the segment, he said. The Concord commander stared at him. We can't tow Mandate ships. Mara's voice stayed flat. We don't have to tow them, she said. We have to make them choose. Rin's mind grabbed the only lever left, logistics. Pell, Rin said, does Mandate care about losing ships? Pell's visor tilted. They care about losing ships publicly, he said. Rin nodded once. Then we make it public, she said. She opened a hardline broadcast on a dumb carrier. No intrusion, no cleverness, just light, direction, and truth. Concord traffic, Rin transmitted, voice steady. This is Helios, emergency service under Keep Limited clearance. We are escorting civilian convoy Delta 7 out of a shear boundary caused by disallowed Mandate interference. Lock timer 5 minutes. Mandate vessels must withdraw or civilians will be trapped. A pause. Then a dozen civilian beacons lit in the far lane. Other ships watching, recording, hungry for explanation. The Mandate commander's voice turned venomous. You are weaponizing distress. Rin didn't blink. You weaponized civilians first, she replied. 02 minutes 31 seconds. Mandate faced a choice. Withdraw and lose the story. Stay and trigger a lock that might trap civilians and be recorded doing it. Their skiffs wavered. Then one skiff fired another pulse toward the barge, desperate to force chaos back into the narrative. Mara did something she'd been avoiding since the first time Helios spoke through foreign speakers. She didn't intrude. She didn't lock their engines. She used mass. The rescue cutter dropped its tow ballast, dense printed slabs, harmless in open space, deadly in a lane because lanes cared about geometry. The slabs slid into the skiff's path, not like bullets, like debris. The skiff swerved instinctively, and in that swerve it crossed the keep's exclusion line again. The lane refused it. The skiff's vector collapsed. Its hull drifted, engines screaming into a rule that didn't care. The keep's text flashed. Disallowed actor removed. The remaining Mandate skiffs finally broke. They burned backward out of the segment, angry, fast, and very, very visible. The lock timer paused. 47 minutes, then updated. Lock aborted. Stability restored. Rin exhaled so hard her chest hurt. The convoy's captain sobbed once over comms, then caught himself, voice shaking. We're clear, he said. We're clear. Mara didn't celebrate. She looked at the timer, still counting down on their clearance window. 31 minutes, 12 seconds, half their hour was gone. Pell's voice was low, full of something like awe and dread. You stayed within rescue scope, he said. You didn't escalate into domination. Mara's eyes stayed forward.
Because the box was real,
She said. The keep's text appeared again, quieter than a verdict but heavier than a compliment.
Emergency service, successful.
Human predictability improved.
Clearance review, updated.
Sela's voice came softly now, exhausted.
That changes what I can say,
She murmured. Pell's visor tilted toward her. It changes what I can prove, he replied. The Concord commander stared at the overlays like they were heresy. And it changes what mandate can claim without lying on record, she said. And there was anger there, real anger. Not at Helios, but at the mandate's tactics. The rescue cutter turned back toward Sol under the pale route line. Rin's hands shook, delayed reaction finally catching her.
We did it,
She whispered. Mara's voice was flat.
We did one,
She said.
There will be more.
Because the keep hadn't granted expansion, it had granted a role. And roles were cages you could live inside, if you were willing to accept the bars. As the convoy's lights dwindled behind them, a final insertion blinked across Pell's recorder feed, something that would end up in an inquiry whether he wanted it to or not. Tribunal, an inquiry fragment, Anchor Security Digest, auto-compiled. Helios vessels executed civilian rescue under Keep Limited Clearance. ESA, mandate interference recorded by archivist Pell. Political impact forecast, mandate containment motion weakened, corridor policy debate reopened. The rescue cutter slid back into Sal's lane mouth under the pale route line, like a boat returning to harbor with its hull scraped and its crew too quiet. 22 minutes 05 seconds, the keep's timer still ran. Not because it wanted drama, because it wanted everyone to remember the shape of permission. Rin watched the convoy's beacon cluster fade behind them and felt the tremor in her hands catch up with her. Not fear of dying. Fear of failing in front of a judge that didn't care why you failed. Pell unstrapped and stood as soon as inertial stress dropped enough to allow it. He didn't celebrate. He checked his recorder core and sealed it with a mechanical latch that looked almost tender. The Concord commander finally sat down, as if admitting gravity existed didn't make her weaker. She stared at the keep's overlays like they were a blasphemy that had been written in her alphabet. Sela's voice came from the blister, exhausted but sharp. Mandate will pivot, she said. Mara kept her eyes forward. They always do, she replied. Sela's laugh was thin.
They'll say you staged the rescue, she said. They'll say Pell staged the recording. They'll say the civilians were actors.
Pell's voice was quiet. Then they will have to say it while the civilian convoy's own logs exist, he replied, and while the keep's disallowance warnings are stamped into every lane monitor. Mara didn't soften. Mandate doesn't need truth, she said. They need a majority. Rin swallowed. Then we give the majority a better fear, she said. Mara glanced at her. Meaning? Rin stared at the timer. 21,014. Fear of the keep slamming the corridor shut, she said. If Mandate keeps treating the lanes like a weapon, the keep punishes everyone. The Concord commander's mouth tightened. If the keep is real, she said, then we've been living under an unacknowledged sovereign. Pell's visor angled toward her. You've been living under it for centuries, he replied. You just called it law, so it felt like yours. Tribunal Inquiry Fragment, Civilian Convoy Delta 7, Captain's statement filed immediately. Mandate skiffs deployed stabilizers into our drift path. Helios vessel provided tow, patch, and buffer without intrusion. If Helios hadn't arrived, we would have lost the barge. The route line guided them back toward Helios's local node interface. No detours, no flourish. As they approached, a wall of traffic icons bloomed at the edge of the segment. Concord cutters, enforcement skiffs, and behind them the heavier mandate shapes, just outside the disallowed boundary, like sharks circling a net. One mandate channel opened wide, loud enough to be heard by anyone in range. Concord Command, the Kestrel adjutant said smoothly. You have allowed an unverified hazard species to operate in the lanes. The only reason civilians survived is because we maintained containment pressure. Rin's jaw clenched. He's claiming credit. Sela's voice was tight. He's claiming inevitability, she corrected. It's smarter. Pell didn't respond over channel. He stepped into the bridge comm slot and transmitted one sentence on a dumb carrier. No cleverness, no arguments. Mandate interference is recorded and logged, Pell said. Your claim is false. Silence followed, then a soft chuckle from the adjutant. Archivist, the adjutant said. You are compromised. Pell's reply was cold. I am witnessed, he said. The Keep's overlay flickered on their display. Clean, indifferent. Mandate claim, unverified. Log consistency, high. Observer, valid. Rin felt her chest tighten. The Keep wasn't moral, but it cared about records. Records were stability. The rescue cutter docked at Helios's node bay under strict no-touch protocols, no nudges, no field guidance. Just clamps and gravity and human hands doing what they'd always done. As soon as the hatch opened, Helios's internal air hit Rin like a memory of safety that wasn't quite true anymore. Sale and Ilias were waiting at the bay line, faces drawn. Sale's first words weren't congratulations. Platform 7 is quiet, he said. Quiet like a fist held too long. Ilias's gaze flicked to Pell.
And the anchor?
He asked. Pell's voice stayed calm. They will call for inquiry, he said. They will call for sanctions. Mandate will call for containment. Silas stepped out last, helmet under her arm, eyes raw. And I will be detained the moment I cross back into Concord space, she said. If the Keep lets me cross. Rin's throat tightened. You can't stay here, she said. Sela's laugh was tired. I can't leave, she replied. That's the point. The Keep's audit text still hovered in the corner of Rin's vision like a curse that had become a calendar. 18 minutes 03 seconds. Mara didn't waste time. We implement the next condition, she said. Seo's eyes narrowed. There's another? Mara nodded. The Keep offered limited clearance, she said. Emergency service only. That's a job description. Ilias's voice went soft.
A leash.
Mara's reply was flat. A purpose, she said. And purposes can become legitimacy. Rin swallowed. We need the Concord to accept it, she said. Not just the Keep. Pell's visor tilted toward her. Then you need a scene, he said, not a speech. Sela's voice was low. Mandate will try to create one, she warned. They'll make you look like a hazard on camera. Mara's eyes hardened. Then we get ahead of them, she said. Emergency broadcast interruption. Helios. Internal. New. Unauthorized. The Keep gave us a leash. The Concord will hold it. Free Node Initiative calls this slow death. The broadcast rippled through the bay's maintenance speakers, ugly and immediate. Sale flinched. They're still pushing. Of course they are, Mara said. We cut their reach. We didn't cut their mouths. Rin felt her stomach drop. If Platform 7 ignites again, Ilias finished for her, voice tight. The Keep partitions. The Concord panics. Mandate celebrates. Pell looked at Rin. This is your stress test, he said quietly. Not a boarding skiff. Your own people. Rin's hands trembled, then steadied as she made a logistics decision, not an emotional one. Bring Kay, she said. Mara's gaze snapped to her.
Why? Because if she keeps shouting from a pen, she's a martyr, Rin said.
If she stands beside us and sees the Keep's leash is also keeping Mandate teeth off our throat, she becomes a witness. Sela's eyes narrowed. Or she spits in your face on camera, she said. Rin nodded once. Then at least the fracture is visible, she replied, and we can't keep governing shadows. Mara didn't like it. That was clear in the tightness of her posture, but she nodded. Fine, she said. Bring her. Under charter. Tribunal SP Inquiry Fragment. Helios Enforcement Log. Manual Entry. Subject Key Voss. Action. Escort to Governance Bay for witness participation. Constraint. No coercion beyond safety containment. Kay arrived in a plain suit, no baton, eyes bright with the kind of anger that feeds on sleeplessness. 2 security officers walked with her at a respectful distance, hands visible. She saw Pell first, and smiled like she'd found a new target. Ah, she said. The Concord quill. Pell's voice stayed mild. The corridor has quills, he replied. I only write what it already stamped. Key's gaze slid to Sela. Her expression flickered. Surprise, then calculation.
You're still here,
she said. Sela's jaw tightened.
The Keep won't let me leave,
she replied. Key's eyes narrowed.
Convenient, she said.
Rin stepped between them, not physically blocking, but framing. The rescue was recorded, Rin said. Civilians are alive because we stayed in the box. Kay's smile thinned. And now you want applause for doing the bare minimum, she said. Rin didn't bite. "No," she said. "I want you to see what happens next." Mara's hardline runner pinged. A lane alert. Not from Helios, from a Concord traffic node, automated, public. Mass casualty risk. Sail read off the strip display, voice going tight. Habitat ring in lane segment, 12 power failure cascade. Life support degradation. Rin's stomach dropped. "Segment 12 is, not ours," Pell said. "Not near sail." Mara's eyes snapped to the keep timer still running. 12 minutes, 14 seconds. Rin's throat went dry.
"If we're emergency service," she whispered, "this is the test."
The keep's text appeared immediately, indifferent to the room's fear. Emergency service call, lane segment 12, clearance scope active. Time window remaining. Key stared at the wall text, face tightening. "It's tasking you," she said. Seela's voice went low. "And if they ignore it," she murmured, "mandate will claim you only intervene when it benefits you." Pell's visor tilted toward Mara. "Mandate will also try to intercept," he said. "If a habitat ring fails, panic spreads. Panic is their favorite fuel." Mara's jaw clenched. "We go," she said. Sail's eyes widened. "We can't reach segment 12 in. We don't need to reach it physically," Mara snapped. "We need to stabilize the corridor approach and send repair swarms through the allowed route. Logistics, not conquest." Rin's mind raced, supply chain in a lane, if we dispatch a relay cutter with swarms and foam. "And we do it under full Concord observation," Pell said, already moving. "So the record is clean." Kay's eyes flicked to Rin. "You're going to run toward fire with a leash around your throat," she said, voice sharp. Rin met her gaze.
"Yes," she said, "because being useful is how you get trusted."
Kay's mouth tightened. "And if the keep locks you out mid-run?" Rin's voice went quiet.
"Then we fail in public," she said.
"And we deserve what comes." That landed, not because it was poetic, because it was the first time anyone in Kay's movement had heard someone with power admit consequence without dressing it up. Mara turned toward the launch corridor. "Pell," she said, "you're coming again." Pell didn't hesitate. "Yes," he said, "and I will be removed for it." Scylla stepped forward.
"So will I," she said, "if I ever get home."
Mara's eyes narrowed. "Stay," she ordered Scylla. Scylla ignored her. "No," she said, "if my people are going to contain you, they need to see my face attached to the truth." Kay watched Scylla for a beat and then quietly spoke. "If you go," Kay said to Rin, "and you come back with civilians alive, I will stand down publicly." Rin's throat tightened.
"You do that?"
Kay's eyes were hard. "I'll do it if it makes mandate containment harder," she said. "Don't mistake it for agreement." Rin nodded once. "I won't," she said, "but I'll take it." They ran. The bay blurred into corridor ribs and emergency strip lights. A relay cutter spun up, swarms loaded, foam tanks pressurized, tow rigs checked. The keep's route line lit again, pointing away from Sol into a distant segment none of them had ever seen. 09 minutes, 02 seconds. As the cutter's hatch sealed, a mandate broadcast cracked across open channel. Too smooth, too prepared. "Concord citizens," the adjutant announced, "be advised. Helios vessels are repositioning under disputed clearance. Do not accept assistance from unverified entities." Pell's voice went cold as he recorded the channel. "He's poisoning the rescue," he said. Mara's hands tightened on the console.
"He's trying to make civilians refuse help," she said, "so they die cleanly."
Rin's stomach turned.
"That's monstrous,"
she whispered. Scylla's voice was tight.
"It's rational,"
she corrected. "If your legitimacy grows, mandate leverage shrinks." The cutter launched, the lane folded, and the timer kept counting down like a heartbeat you couldn't slow. Ahead, the route line led into a corridor that flickered, unstable, already sick, and just beyond the first bend, 3 mandate skiffs slid into view, parked neatly across the path like polite obstacles, their hulls angled to look non-threatening. They didn't fire, they didn't chase. They simply occupied the lane and waited for the keep to decide whether humans saving civilians counted as military advantage. Pell's voice went low. "They're forcing an interpretation." Mara's jaw clenched. "Then we force the keep's hand," she said. Rin's throat went dry as the keep's text appeared over the lane feed, as calm as gravity. "Disallowed actors present. Lock risk rising." Emergency timer continues. 07 minutes 01 seconds. The cutter's nose held steady on the route line. Mandate held position. Civilians in Segment 12 were already losing air, and the keep, cold, procedural, watching, waited to see what humans did when rescue required confrontation. Mandate held position. 3 skiffs, nose to nose across the pale route line, hulls angled just enough to look neutral. If you squinted and wanted to believe in neutral predators, the timer kept ticking anyway. 6:58, 6:57, 6:56. Rin could almost feel the habitat ring in Segment 12 like a weight in her ribs. 6,000 people, maybe more, inside a spinning band of metal that didn't care who won arguments. Life support didn't breathe politics. It breathed power. Mara kept the cutter's nose steady. No aggressive burn, no feint, no velocity spike that could be edited into human attack. Pell's voice was low. "They're forcing you to choose," he said. "Push them, and you looked like a military actor. Stop and civilians die." Sela's jaw clenched. "And whichever you pick, Mandate calls it proof," she said. The Mandate lead skiff opened a channel again, smooth as poured oil. "Helios vessel," the adjutant said. "You are escalating a disputed situation. Stand down. Concord citizens are advised to refuse assistance." Rin felt her hands tighten until her fingers ached. Mara didn't answer him. She spoke to the keep, not with a prayer, with a report. "Emergency service objective is active," Mara said aloud in the bridge, voice even. "Disallowed actors are obstructing route. We will not use force for advantage. We request corridor action, consistent with civilian life protection." For 2 seconds, nothing changed. Then the keep's text rendered across the main display in the same indifferent font it used for everything else, like a clerk stamping a form. "Request received. Evaluating obstruction. Constraint check. Military advantage. None declared." Rin swallowed. "It's listening." Pell's visor angled toward her. "It's classifying," he corrected. The Mandate skiffs didn't move. Their engines idled, patient. They were betting the keep would hesitate to take sides. They were wrong about what the keep considered a side. The display updated. Mandate disallowed. Obstruction of emergency route disallowed. Withdrawal timer 60. A new countdown appeared beneath the big one. 60, 59, 58. The Mandate adjutant's voice sharpened, losing some polish. "This is unacceptable," he snapped. "Concord Command, override." The Concord commander on Mara's bridge spoke once, cold and audible. "You don't override the lanes," she said. "You've been pretending you do." The adjutant laughed, bitter. "Then watch your civilians die when these machines decide you're not cleared either." The withdrawal timer dropped. 41, 40, 39. Mandate hesitated, not because they cared about civilians, because they cared about what happened to Mandate assets if the keep decided disallowed meant removed. One skiff drifted backward a meter, then another. The third held, stubborn. The adjutant's voice went sharp again. "Hold," he ordered. "Make them." The keep didn't argue. It rendered one last line. Non-compliance will result in local vector refusal. 07, 06, 07. The stubborn skiff tried to surge forward at the last second, as if speed could bully a rule. Its engines flared. Space in front of its nose simply stopped being a place it could go. The skiff didn't explode. It didn't get torn apart. It just lost permission to be on that line. Its vector collapsed into a helpless drift, like a predator running into an invisible fence and realizing the fence doesn't care about teeth. Disallowed actor removed from route. The other 2 skiffs snapped backward, suddenly eager to be anywhere else. The Mandate adjutant's voice came back tight with rage. "You've just," Pell cut in, calm as winter. "You just lost a ship because you refused to move for civilians," he said. "I have it recorded." The adjutant didn't answer. He didn't need to. Silence was the sound of someone deciding how to spin a loss. The big timer still ran. 5 minutes, 12 seconds. Mara didn't waste the opening. "Route line is clear," Rin said, already deploying the swarm crates. "Drones first," Mara replied. "Cutter follows at safe pace. No chase, no victory burns." Repair swarms poured into the lane corridor, a glittering stream of tiny lights that looked almost gentle in the wrong geometry. Foam tanks followed, emergency air bladders, scrubber bricks, heat clamps. Everything you needed when the difference between living and dying was measured in minutes and seals. They rode the route line like beads on a string. Ship A incident report, Helios rescue cutter air-gapped, emergency route open. Disallowed actors, partial withdrawal. Drone payload, deployed. Civilian risk, high, trending down. Segment 12's habitat ring appeared as a rotating band in the distance, lights flickering in ragged patches. 1/4 of the ring was dark. Another quarter was in emergency amber. The rotation was stable for now, but the ring's attitude thrusters were stuttering, fighting a slow precession that would turn stable spin into structural stress. Rin didn't think about the people inside as civilians. She thought about air. Air was always what killed you first. "Dock clamp on Node A," Mara ordered. "No breach, no intrusion. We patch through service ports." Juno's voice came through the blister channel, steady and bright. "Habitat 12, this is Helios Emergency Service. We are sending repair swarms and life support bricks. Do not override your own safeties unless your engineers confirm." A strained voice answered, barely controlled. "We have Kokar rising. We have children in the East Arc. Our scrubbers are failing." Rin's throat tightened. "Bricks are inbound," she said. Hold, you're not alone." The swarms latched to the ring's exterior like insects with purpose. Foam blossomed over a cracked conduit. A heat clamp sealed a failing junction. Power reroute nodes printed themselves from feedstock, snapped into place, and came online with the blunt efficiency of humans turning constraints into tools. The ring's light steadied, not all at once, in steps, in zones, in proof. Coke curves on the habitat's local telemetry flattened, then began to drop. The engineer on the other end exhaled hard enough to be heard through the channel. "Scrubbers are stabilizing," he said. We're stabilizing." Rin felt her chest loosen. Mara didn't let herself breathe yet. "Keep the swarms on attitude thrusters," she said. "If the ring precesses, we lose the whole band." "On it," Rin replied, voice tight. They worked like that for 10 minutes that felt like an hour, quiet, fast, exact. No hero lines, no triumph, just a refusal to let people die because predators wanted a better story. When the ring's rotation settled into clean, stable spin, the Keep's overlay flickered once on the bridge display. Emergency service successful. Civilian loss prevented. Human action within scope. The big timer on the corner of the display hit 00. Rin flinched automatically, expecting the corridor to slam shut. It didn't. Instead, a new line appeared. "Clearance window extended for return." Sela let out a breath that sounded like someone finally unclenching a jaw she'd been holding shut for days. "They're letting you go home," she whispered. Pell's voice was quiet. "They're letting them return," he corrected. "Home is politics." Mara turned the cutter gently back toward the route line, keeping every burn soft and boring on purpose. Boring was stability. Behind them, the habitat ring's lights continued to glow, steady now, stubborn, alive. And far behind, mandate ships kept their distance, because the Keep's refusal was the kind you couldn't intimidate. Tribunal inquiry fragment. Anchor public feed. Auto excerpt. Habitat. 12 stabilized by Helios Emergency Service. Mandate skiff loss recorded during disallowed obstruction. Public sentiment shift detected. If Helios is a hazard, why did it save us? Back in Seoul, the return docking had no ceremony, just clamps, atmosphere checks, boots on deck. Rin stepped off the cutter with her legs shaking from delayed adrenaline and her mind already calculating what came next, because logistics brains didn't stop just because the worst minute passed. Kay Voss was waiting at the bay line, flanked by 2 officers who kept their hands visible. She looked smaller without her stage, not weaker, just more human. Her eyes flicked to Rin first, then to Pell, then to Sela. "You did it," Kay said, voice flat. Rin didn't nod like she'd won. "We kept people breathing," she replied. Kay's mouth tightened. "And mandate couldn't make you look like monsters," she said. Pell's visor angled slightly. "They tried," he said. "They failed on record." Key stared at the floor for a second, then looked back up. "I said I'd stand down," she said, and the words tasted like swallowing metal. "Publicly, I will." Rin felt something inside her unclench that she hadn't realized was still clenched. "Do it soon," Mara said, "before fear finds a new mouth." Key's gaze slid to Mara. "You get your leash," she said. "Enjoy it." Mara didn't blink. I'll enjoy not being contained by the mandate, she replied. Key's laugh was a single sharp exhale. Then she turned and walked away, already rehearsing the speech she'd hate herself for making because it saved lives. Scylla watched her go, face raw.
That will cost her,
she murmured. Rin's voice was quiet. Cost is the only currency the Keep accepts, she said. Pell stood still for a long moment, then unlatched his physical recorder core and held it out to Scylla.
What is that? Scylla asked.
The truth, Pell said. Scylla's jaw clenched. They'll detain me if I take it back. They'll detain you if you breathe wrong, Pell replied. At least bring something worth being detained for. Scylla took the core with both hands like it was heavy. I'm sorry, Rin said, and meant it for 100 different things at once. Scylla looked at her, tired, angry, alive. Don't be sorry, she said. Be consistent. Then she turned toward her envoy ship, shoulders squared like someone walking into an inquiry chamber with a knife at her throat and choosing to speak anyway. The Keep's wedge still hovered at the lane mouth, present in the way mountains were present. But when Scylla's ship aligned to leave, the wedge did not block her. It simply watched. Scylla transmitted one last tight beam message back toward Helios. Dumb carrier, no tricks. Hold to your charter. If you break it, they will have a reason. Rin replied with the same kind of message. We will. Scylla's ship slipped into the corridor and vanished. Pell didn't move for a long time after that. Mara finally spoke, voice low.
They'll remove you when you go back, she said.
Pell's visor angled toward her. Yes, he replied, and mandate will call it safety. Rin swallowed.
You don't have to, girl, she said.
Pell's voice was almost gentle. If I stay, I become your prisoner, he said. If I leave, I become their warning. He paused. Warnings are useful, he added, and there was dark humor there, thin as wire. He turned toward the docking collar, toward the corridor that would carry him home to consequences. Before he stepped out, the Keep rendered one final note on a wall panel near the bay, small, easy to miss unless you were trained to look for it. Human status, limited clearance, continues. Role, emergency service. Review, after consistent performance. Prohibition, expansion via lane. Rin stared at the words until they stopped feeling like a verdict and started feeling like a plan. No expansion, no conquest, no shortcuts, but a route to trust measured in work, not threats. Mara read it once and nodded, almost imperceptible. We can build under that, she said. Sale arrived breathless, face drawn. Platform 7 is holding, he said. Kaya's statement is spreading. The panic curve is flattening. Ilias stepped in behind him, eyes tired. Your species just accepted a leash, he said softly, and didn't turn it into a crown. Rin felt the weight of it settle into her bones. They had wanted the lanes because they were a horizon. Now the horizon was conditional, so they would do what humans had always done. They would adapt. They would turn constraint into infrastructure. They would build slow redundancy, seed vaults, sleeper ships, patient arcs, so no single lock could end them. They would keep saving people where the corridors burned, because being useful was how you became unignorable without being feared. And somewhere in the lanes, the Keep would continue to watch. Indifferent but consistent, rewarding predictability, the way gravity rewards careful footing. Rin looked out through the bay viewport at Sol's bruised light and the half-built shell around it. Unfinished, stubborn, alive. A warning had once said, grow strong, save yourselves. Now it meant something different. Grow disciplined, save each other. Thus ends the first hour of mercy on a leash. A star that won't stop being dismantled. A corridor that refuses to be owned. A species that can wrap its sun in scaffolding, but still has to learn how to keep its own hands out of a stranger's throat. The mandate prowls at the edges with paperwork sharpened into knives. Concord writes stability, like a prayer, and the Keep cold, ancient, tireless doesn't hate humanity, it simply grades them. On Sol, Rin doesn't conquer, Mara doesn't win, Pell doesn't stay clean, Scylla doesn't get to go home unscarred. They choose the only victory the lanes will accept, consistent restraint under stress. They save people they've never met while their enemies try to make the rescue look like a crime. And that's the real turning point, how quickly survive becomes serve. and how quickly serve becomes the only path left to earn a future. So take a second. Sit with it. The timer on the screen. The mandate skiff parked like a polite threat. The moment the keep disallows a predator instead of a victim. The quiet horror of realizing expansion is banned, but mercy still counts. Tell me what moment hit you hardest. Rin stamping the charter, Pell cutting his own career loose, or the first time the keep treated save them as the only valid move. Drop it in the comments. Let's compare the scorch marks. If you want more sci-fi told like a hard chronicle, where the universe doesn't care, but choices still do, leave a like. Subscribe for the next transmission, because the lanes are still watching, the mandate is still hungry, and emergency service is only the beginning of what humanity is about to become.